Good morning to you. It's 7 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
Sophie and Wilf, good morning from both of us. It is, no word of a lie, an absolutely seismic week ahead. It's a big morning for us too.
The start of a crucial week that will decide Sir Keir Starmer's political future after his Chief of Staff resigns.
Pro-Hong Kong democracy campaigner and British citizen Jimmy Lai has been jailed for 20 years for national security offences that he denies.
Bad Bunny avoids the politics for his Super Bowl halftime show, but it's still got President Trump angry. Meanwhile, the Seattle Seahawks beat the New England Patriots.
Also this morning, social media goes on trial in Los Angeles.
Platforms are facing claims they're addictive by design, and the case could fundamentally change how platforms operate.
Good morning. Welcome to the programme. Morgan McSweeney, Keir Starmer's right-hand man, has gone. He quit yesterday over his decision to push for Peter Mandelson to get the US ambassador job. And look, it is impossible to overstate how important Morgan McSweeney has been for the Starmer project. And in losing him, really, Keir Starmer has played his last card.
The question now is, will it be enough to save his premiership? Well, Keir Starmer will be hoping that with his lightning rod chief of staff gone, the party can now move on from the Mandelson saga. But of course, his leadership rivals are circling. Let's bring in Mari, who is here with us. Mari, just for those tuning in for the first time, recap kind of the timeline of how this unfolded, because he announced his resignation, Morgan McSweeney, a matter of hours after Pat McFadden was sitting just about here saying, no, he doesn't need to go.
Exactly, yeah. So Pat McFadden on Trevor Phillips on Sky News about 9 o'clock in the morning was saying, you know, all this stuff about Morgan McSweeney is beside the point. This was a prime ministerial decision. It was the PM who made the decision, and therefore the decision is the PM's responsibility. So kind of pushing it back on the PM. And then by 2 o'clock, Morgan McSweeney had resigned. And we understand that the Prime Minister and Morgan McSweeney decided it was the right time, the right moment to move on, as it were. And so that's kind of how we got to where we are. Now, in terms of the reaction from different political parties, now all the opposition parties are, of course, capitalising on this. Tories saying that this is actually the PM pointing fingers at other people, never taking responsibility for himself. The Lib Dems saying they should want a confidence vote. Reform saying this is just continuation of Tory chaos. The Greens saying it's not enough, the PM's got to go. So all the opposition parties are pointing the finger at Labour and saying this is a disaster, this is a disgrace. Now, in terms of what we're expecting this week, how is Number 10 and the PM going to try and salvage the situation? Well, first of all, tonight, the Prime Minister is going to be addressing the Parliamentary Labour Party, trying to rally the troops and persuade his MPs to stick with him. He's going to be addressing the Women's Parliamentary Labour Party after PMQs on Wednesday as well, specifically, of course, because the Mandelson affair has been about trafficking women and exploiting women. And so female MPs are in despair at what we've seen and how it's been allowed to be brushed to the side because of somebody's supposed incredible talents. But also, this week is about Number 10 trying to show what the PM is going to do, taking hard action as a result of what we've seen. So they're going to be focusing on his values. They're going to be focusing on why he's the right person to do some of this repair work, to try and salvage the situation. They're going to emphasise on his view and his opinion on public service and his commitment to public service. They're going to talk about how he recognises how much public trust has been damaged by this affair. They're going to talk about how he's got a long-standing commitment to high standards in public life, and then they're going to point to all the changes he's already made around those kinds of things. And we are going to be expecting to hear more from the PM in the coming days on that work that's being done, going further, looking at the appointments process, looking at lobbying rules. So that's the plan for the week.
I just want to take a moment to kind of really reflect on what a massive moment this is, what a critical moment this is. Morgan McSweeney, right? I mean, we talk about advisors an awful lot, you know, in Westminster it feels like, but it is impossible to overstate how important this guy is for Keir Starmer. I mean, he is Starmerism. He's kind of the whole project, in a way. And I guess my question this morning is this a roll of the dice that may mean that he has done enough to draw a line under it all? He's made the biggest sacrifice, the sacrifice that many people are calling on. Or is this actually really the beginning of the end? Is this going to hasten his demise? Because he's got rid of the brains, the heart behind Starmerism, behind the project. He's also got rid of someone who's been acting as a bit of a human shield. And so I guess that is my question this morning. Where does it leave Keir Starmer?
So Starmer's team will argue that he's the right guy for the job, and this is why we need to stick by him, that actually he's the best person. If you look at some of his rivals, they would make a disaster of this. We can't turn into the Tories. We've got to stick with the leader. That will be their argument. But if you speak to a lot of Labour MPs, the majority of them are telling me, now maybe I'm speaking to the wrong ones, but the majority of them are telling me he's on borrowed time. At this point, it's a when, not if. And the question will be, how can they pick the timing, whether that's after the May local elections? And really, it's a case of managing that.
I mean, to your point, Sophie, as well, about whether it speeds things up, a lot of the opposition parties are making the case, which seems to be fairly reasonable to say, well, if we're now admitting that a head needed to roll in and around the appointment of Peter Mandelson, it's not a great defence to say, well, the person who drew up the advice is the one that deserves to go, not the person that made the final decision. And in that sense, it definitely doesn't feel like, line has been drawn under it.
And that was Pat McFadden's point, by the way, as well.
Yeah.
He was saying it was a prime ministerial appointment.
Exactly. And then, the only other thing I'd say is this is unbelievably big moment, as you say, with Morgan McSweeney. I still wonder whether the biggest moment was last week when we saw another vote in Parliament that he couldn't win, despite his massive parliamentary majority, on an issue now that wasn't about welfare cuts or wasn't about the two-child benefit cap. It was basically the opposition trying to put political pressure on the Prime Minister, and he couldn't win it. Yeah. So he just doesn't have the authority of his own MPs.
And that is the key. It was about trust, and the fact is his MPs do not trust him. And that is a fundamental problem for Keir Starmer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you say, if you lose the confidence of your MPs, it's almost like the trajectory all the way back to that welfare vote. And that is a problem. How can you govern? How can you...
Those votes, those earlier ones, you could just about say, OK, everyone will fall back in line again, because the welfare thing was such an important issue for them individually. Moving on, the Prime Minister has authority. But last week, you can't hide behind that policy issue. It was basically the opposition trying to cause him political pressure, and they didn't stand to the defence of their Prime Minister. Big moments.
Yeah, Mari, going to be a busy week for you, I'm sure. We'll speak to you soon. Busy moment on the programme as well. We're going to be talking to Jackie Smith for the government very soon. Also, the newly acquired MP for Reform UK, Robert Jenrick, as well.
Meanwhile, the pro-democracy campaigner and British citizen Jimmy Lai has been jailed for 20 years in Hong Kong after being convicted of national security offences.
He denies the charges, and the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is now joining the voices calling for him to be released on humanitarian grounds. Here's our Asia correspondent, Helen Smith.
Today really marks the conclusion, the culmination, if you like, of an over 5-year journey for Jimmy Lai. 5 years since he was arrested in Hong Kong under national security offences, accused of publishing seditious material and colluding with foreign forces. And the eyes of the world really have been on this trial, on this sentence. How would China deal with Hong Kong's arguably most well-known dissident, most well-known pro-democracy voice? And the answer really is extremely harshly. This sentence that he has been given, 20 years in prison, really is on the far harsher end, I think, of what anybody expected in this case. And his family and his lawyers have long said that a long sentence of this nature would essentially amount to a death sentence, if you like, for Jimmy Lai, a life imprisonment sentence, because he's an elderly man. He's in his late 70s. He's not in good health. He has diabetes. He has heart conditions. His children have said that he's so weak that his fingernails are falling out. He's been kept in solitary confinement for over 5 years. So I think a really deeply distressing day and moment for his family and his lawyers who've been advocating for his release. Let's take a step back and just remind you who Jimmy Lai is. He is really a Hong Kong rags to riches story. He came to Hong Kong as a child stowaway. He worked as a child labourer before building up a massive clothing empire, before turning his hand to media. And he was the owner and publisher publisher of this brash tabloid-style newspaper in Hong Kong called Apple Daily. And that publication, and Jimmy Lai at the head of it, was unashamedly pro-democracy, unabashed about its criticism, his criticism, if you like, of the Beijing authorities. And he has long been a thorn in China's side. But the focus on him really honed in around the 2019 pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong, protests that he took part in and supported. And it was after that that this big, sweeping national security law came in, and it was under that that he was arrested. Look, in court, the judge described his crimes as grave, as premeditated, and said that they would not be taking Jimmy Lai's medical condition into consideration as part of the sentencing. But I just want to put this sentence in some context, because it's actually double the longest sentence we have seen thus far for a Hong Konger under this national security law. Even China's most famous dissident, Liu Xiaobo, who's the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, sentenced for sedition and other related crimes back in 2009, even he only got 11 years. So 20 years. Look, this is absolutely China making an example of Jimmy Lai, absolutely wanting to show the world that it is not going to back down on these type of cases.
Helen Ann Smith there for us, and we will be talking to his son, Jimmy Lai's son, coming up in the next hour of the programme.
Now, Japan's Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi is on course for a landslide victory in yesterday's snap election.
The ultra-conservative Prime Minister is predicted to win a supermajority in the country's lower house. She called the snap election, hoping to capitalise on her popularity in the polls, a bet that certainly seems to have paid off.
Now, the election has been watched very closely by China, where officials are concerned that Japan could take a tougher stance on defence and Taiwan.
Meanwhile, President Trump gave his congratulations, saying she's a highly respected and very popular leader. Sanai's bold and wise decision to call for an election paid off big time. The wonderful people of Japan who voted with such enthusiasm will always have my strong support. Just to mention sort of the scale of this victory, with her coalition partners, they've won 75% of the lower house. Her own party itself got 316 of the 465 seats, with the coalition partners 352. That's critical because you can then overrule the upper house. This is the lower house elections, essentially their House of Commons. And a lot of focus then, excuse me, on her ability to push through her fiscal package, which is, people have made this comparison, a bit like the Liz Truss approach to, we've got a lot of debt, they've got 225% of debt to GDP versus our 100% here, and we're going to get out of it just by spending. And, you know, obviously a lot of question marks over whether that will work or not, but it seems like she'll now have the ability to push that through if she so desires, because this is a huge, huge victory, bigger than people expected, 75% with her coalition partners of the seats.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? She's a bit of a character as well. She likes the drum, she likes motorbikes, she likes heavy metal. Might be celebrating them with, you know, a bit of Metallica or Iron Maiden or something.
Or whatever the Japanese equivalent is.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Or maybe they're big on Iron Maiden, who knows? But huge victory overnight. Obviously, she inherited the premiership with a change of leader within the parties, became Japan's first female prime minister, called a snap election, you know, quite a high-risk ploy. Theresa May knows a thing or two about that, but it's worked, and she's got a massive majority.
Now, there's a landmark trial getting underway in Los Angeles, which could genuinely change the way social media works.
Platforms like Meta and YouTube are facing claims they are addictive by design. Our science and technology reporter, Mickey Carroll, has this.
Social media is on trial, and if it loses, it could change the way we live online. So in LA, there's this mega trial underway, accusing social media platforms of being addictive by design, a bit like cigarettes or tobacco. For years, people have tried to sue companies like Meta, TikTok, Snap, YouTube, saying that social media has damaged them. But those cases have been largely unsuccessful. So now lawyers are trying a different angle of attack. So what makes this trial different? The first difference is the jury. These companies have never faced trial by jury. The second difference is the scale. So the testimonies of more than 1,500 people have been considered as part of these trials, and we're expecting around 22 bellwether trials, test trials, to help lawyers assess future cases. Now, the third difference, potentially the most important difference, is the actual allegation. They're not talking here about the content on social media being harmful. They're saying that the product itself, i.e. the social media platform, is defective and harmful by design. The first of these trials focuses on allegations by a then 19-year-old Californian. She says that Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube and Instagram caused her to have body image issues, anxiety and depression. Now, Snapchat and TikTok have already settled out of court, but Meta and YouTube are still on trial. They say there's no clear scientific link between tech use and addiction, and that there'll need to be really strong evidence that they've significantly harmed young people. Now, if the social media companies lose, they'll have to pay compensation, but they'll also have to change the way they operate. And it'll pave the way for the scores of other social media trials that are coming their way.
Mickey Carroll there for us. It'll be an interesting one to watch at the moment in Los Angeles, in the California Superior Court. And we'll see if it kind of, as Mickey was alluding to there, kind of snowballs from there, depending on how it goes.
More information coming out all the time from that massive dump of files, the Jeffrey Epstein files, and the latest suggests the King's brother, Andrew, might have shared confidential reports with the late paedophile when he was working as a UK trade envoy. Joining us is Olivia to break down what exactly we're referring to here, Olivia.
Well, following on from Peter Mandelson being accused by the Prime Minister of betraying our country for sharing sensitive information with Jeffrey Epstein, allegedly, it now appears that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was doing the same. Similarly, he was sharing confidential reports, apparently, during his job as UK trade envoy. Now, what he appears to have sent him via these emails that have been released by the US Department of Justice include shared reports from visits to Hong Kong, China, Vietnam and Singapore. He also forwarded one just 5 minutes after he received it from his special advisor. And he also appears to have looped Epstein in on confidential reports about investment opportunities during the reconstruction of Afghanistan. Now, Andrew was a special representative for trade and investment between 2001 and 2011. And government guidance makes clear that he had a duty of confidentiality not to share sensitive commercial or political information about relevant markets. Now, there has been no comment so far on these allegations from Andrew, but he has always strongly denied any wrongdoing. This follows on from these images being released from the Department of Justice files showing him on all fours over a young woman. He has now had to move out of Royal Lodge. He's moved on to the King's Sandringham estate. He has been stripped of his royal titles and he was forced to pay millions in a settlement with Epstein's victim, Virginia Giuffre. Again, he strongly denies any wrongdoing in all of this, but we will wait to see what the latest response is to these latest allegations.
Olivia, thanks so much. Very much appreciated.
Just to emphasise the right of reply as well, the reminder, of course, that Andrew has previously denied any wrongdoing and also saying that being named or pictured is not an indication of wrongdoing.
You might have seen the Super Bowl last night. Bad Bunny was the star attraction of last night's halftime show and getting some attention because while he didn't explicitly criticise some of President Trump's policies towards immigration of late, like he did at last week's Grammys, he instead performed entirely in Spanish, and that did lead to the ire of President Trump as well.
Yeah, President Trump's on Truth Social after the show saying it was absolutely terrible, the worst ever, and nobody understood a word this guy's saying. So I think he liked it.
He didn't enjoy it that much. If you want an expert analysis of all of the key plays during the game, then Cheat Sheet is the place for you today. Yeah. Sophie and I.
We did our best, I think it's fair to say,
we did our best
on the podcast today.
But, of course, we both remember who won.
Yes, we do. It's on the cheat sheet, I'm sure. Anyway, moving on.
Put you on the spot there, sorry. Seattle Seahawks won.
There you go. You pay more attention than me. It's very good, Wilf. Right, it's a huge week in Westminster. Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff, the right-hand man of Keir Starmer, the man who really kind of masterminded his landslide election victory, He's gone. He's out over his decision to push for the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US ambassador. But I guess the question now moves to Keir Starmer. Has he done enough to save his premiership? Did he play his last card in vain? We'll be trying to find out a little bit more with our next guest, the Skills Minister, Baroness Jackie Smith. Great to have you on the programme.
Good morning.
So, Jackie, Morgan McSweeney is gone. Should he have?
Well, I think Morgan himself explained why he felt that, having given the advice that he did, he wanted to take responsibility for that. And, of course, I suspect, recognising, as I've seen a few times in my career, that when the advisor becomes the story, it's probably right that they move aside.
It's difficult to overstate the importance of Morgan McSweeney to the Starmerism project. I think that's fair to say. You know, he was absolutely at the heart of the election victory. He's been at Keir Starmer's side ever since. I mean, he is the Starmerism project. Can Keir Starmer survive without him?
Well, Morgan McSweeney certainly played an important role with Keir in, first of all, changing and recovering, I would say, the Labour Party to a position where it could win the general election in 2024 and helping to win that election and for the first 18 months in government. But it was Keir Starmer that led the party to win that election, to win a 5-year term, to change the country. And it's Keir Starmer that will continue to lead that change.
You can't downplay his role, though.
Well, I think I just said that
he was really important.
I think I just said that I thought he played an important role, and I certainly, and I know others are grateful to him for, particularly for the change that he made in our party after a disastrous previous election result, to enable us to be in the position where Keir Starmer can lead the change that this country needs.
Can I just ask you a little bit about how the decision was reached? Because yesterday, in the morning, Pat McFadden was sitting basically where you are, and he backed Morgan McSweeney just hours before he ended up going. I think we might better play you what Pat McFadden said yesterday morning. Let's just listen.
I don't think he should. In the end, it's a prime ministerial, well, signed off by the King, but it's a prime ministerial appointment, and prime ministers have to take responsibility for the decisions that they make.
So he's saying that he didn't think Morgan McSweeney should go. So I guess what went on? Did the Prime Minister change his mind on Sunday, or did he just forget to tell the Minister on the morning round what was going on?
No, I think it was Morgan that made the decision, and as I understand it, had been thinking about it certainly since the beginning of the...
But there's a communications issue there.
Well, no, look,
very odd,
come on, Sophie. People like me, people like Pat, that come onto programmes like this are going to be supportive of people that we have worked closely with. But it was Morgan who thought about the position that he was in, and particularly, as I say, the extent to which he'd become the story, and decided that the best thing for the government that he had worked hard to ensure got into power was able to carry on doing the work for the country that is so important.
So are you saying, that Keir Starmer didn't want him to go? Did he want to keep Morgan McSweeney?
My understanding is that Morgan McSweeney made the decision, Keir accepted it, they agreed together that that was the right thing to do.
Because, that's my point, I guess, because this is the thing. It's not just that Keir Starmer, the briefing that we've had is that they jointly decided it was the right thing to do.
Well, that's what I think I just said. So now the priority...
It's not just the decision of Morgan McSweeney, that's my point,
So now the priority is for the Prime Minister, who has taken responsibility for the mistakes made in appointing Peter Mandelson, both to put right what went wrong there and to carry on the work of change in the country. And I think that's what he'll be focusing on this morning.
The problem is, sacking your closest advisor is a bit...
Well, I think we've both agreed he didn't sack his closest advisor, haven't we?
OK, I'll rephrase. Coming to a joint decision with your closest advisor that the best thing that should happen is for them to go is playing your last card, right? It's getting rid of the human shield, the lightning rod. We've seen it with previous premierships as well. It's almost the beginning of the end. And there's already signs that it's not enough. Clive Lewis, for example, Morgan McSweeney's resignation should not be treated as a cleansing moment. He was not an aberration. He was the tip of the iceberg. It's not going to be enough, is it? It's almost hastening his demise.
No Prime Minister has a human shield. Every Prime Minister is exposed and responsible for the decisions that they make in government. That's something that Keir Starmer has always taken seriously, and it's what he'll continue to work on.
Will he still be Prime Minister this time next year?
I very much hope so. I think the last thing that the country or the party could do with at the moment is a lengthy leadership campaign. Look,
what would you say on that? Just on that, what would you say to all your colleagues who are really helpfully briefing the press, saying that they actually warned Keir Starmer about Mandelson all along?
Well, as I have previously said when I've come on your programme, Sophie, at times like this, I think it would be better, given that we were elected to change the country, if people focused on doing that rather than on thinking about who the future leader may or may not be at some point or another.
Because and how's that focus going?
There is a big job to be done.
How's that focus going? Is the party focused? Is the cabinet focused?
Yeah, well, I believe they are, and I believe that they should be.
Do you really?
Well, I mean...
All of them?
I've just said I think some of them should probably concentrate a bit more, and certainly they should get their advisors to concentrate a bit more on the change we're making to the country rather than the change that might happen to the leadership of the Labour Party at some point in the distant future. And that's what the Prime Minister is and needs to be focused on now.
You and Peter Mandelson go way back, right? You both served for Tony Blair, both served for Gordon Brown. Ayesha Hazarika has been very strong, I thought, over the weekend, saying it's a shameful week for Labour. And the reason Labour's been so seduced by Peter Mandelson over all those years is because of what she describes as a male power structure. I mean, do you agree with her, what she's saying?
Well, yes, you're right that I served in the cabinet with Peter Mandelson between 2008 and 2009 when Gordon Brown brought him back into government, when I was focused on fighting terrorism and tackling crime and violence against women, and he appears to have been focused on downloading information and sending it to Jeffrey Epstein. I'm pretty... I was going to say a word that you shouldn't say on the telly. I'm pretty angry about that. More importantly, and this is where I think Ayesha's right, at the heart of this issue is the rich and powerful men across the world who enabled and were complicit in the rape and abuse of young women. And if I know one thing about the Prime Minister, it's that he is absolutely determined to take action on that. When I first met him back in 2007, it was when he was Director of Public Prosecutions and I was working on, as Home Secretary, on how we tackle violence against women and girls. He was absolutely driving the Crown Prosecution Service to tackle that issue. And I know that it's what he will continue to do now.
I do want to give you the opportunity to talk about your announcement today. It's fair, obviously. It's about apprenticeships. What is it?
So this is National Apprenticeship Week. It's a really important week in which we can both celebrate what apprenticeships mean to people, young and older, but we can also make clear that the opportunities that apprenticeships provide, particularly for young people, helps to give opportunities to young people that they haven't had enough of in this country. And we will improve both the information around apprenticeships and we'll also pivot the system so that there are more opportunities for young people, and we can see that's helping both young people to get on and also driving the growth and the opportunity we need to see in the economy as well.
OK, Jackie Smith, thank you very much indeed. Jackie Smith speaking to us then.
View of the government there. After the break, we're going to get the view of Labour Party MPs. Backbench MPs will be joined by Natalie Fleet after this.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Welcome back. Reminder of the top stories this morning. There are calls for Sir Keir Starmer to take more accountability over the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US Ambassador. The Prime Minister's right-hand man, Morgan McSweeney, resigned after accepting full responsibility for supporting the decision.
Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper is pushing for Jimmy Lai to be released from prison in Hong Kong on humanitarian grounds after he was sentenced to 20 years overnight. The pro-democracy campaigner and British citizen was found guilty of conspiracy to collude with foreign forces and of publishing seditious material. He denies the charges.
The Seattle Seahawks have been crowned champions of Super Bowl 60. Before the game, demonstrators handed out thousands of ice-out towels around the stadium in Santa Clara, California, encouraging spectators to raise the towels during game penalties. US President Donald Trump criticised the halftime show by Spanish artist Bad Bunny. More now on our top story. Sir Keir Starmer's fighting for his political future after losing his right-hand man, Morgan McSweeney. Well, joining us now is the Labour MP, Natalie Fleet. A very good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Morning.
I guess the top question I have is, if the decision to appoint Lord Mandelson as ambassador warrants heads to roll in number 10, is it enough for the person that collated the advice to go and not the person that made the final decision?
I'm incredibly biased because I believe that the person that can sort violence against women and girls in all its forms is absolutely the Prime Minister. I believe him when he told me that he knew barely any of this at the time. The papers will come out over the next few days, well, over the coming weeks, and there will be more information and we'll know exactly then what the Prime Minister did and didn't know. But I believe him when he tells me that he had no idea about this. When he did find out in September, he sacked Mandelson straight away. And my goodness, if he had any idea of the information that we hold now, then there's no way that Peter Mandelson would have been in place.
Well, just that I think you're alluding to some of his, what appears to be his leaks around sensitive information as business secretary. But to the point about violence against women and girls, the Prime Minister himself has acknowledged he knew the man that he appointed to be ambassador maintained a relationship with a convicted paedophile.
Yes, and that relationship was absolutely played down. The Prime Minister's made it really clear that he knew what was in the public domain, but Peter Mandelson told him that they were acquaintances, they didn't see or have much to do with each other. We just didn't know then what we know now. And the reason that I feel so strongly and I'm here today is because we look around the world and there are prime ministers that do not care about violence against women and girls in the same way that our Prime Minister does. His commitment has been absolutely unwavering. This was a huge mistake, one that, your headlines are showing is having horrendous consequences for him. But I want him to stay in place. I don't believe that he should go over it because there's so much more to do around violence against women and girls. He appointed 2 women into Morgan McSweeney's position last night. He has... I want to see us go further and faster. We've already done so much on Vogue. If you are one of the 200 women that are raped today, you can go to a police station. There'll be a specialist officer there. We're tackling the courts so that you don't have 5 years of trauma. And then we're sorting out prisons so that the perpetrator can actually serve the sentence. It's so hard to make shame change sides. But you can only do that if you have a Prime Minister that is absolutely on the side of victims. I believe that Keir Starmer is, and that's why I want him to stay in place.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting that that is the number one issue for you, and yet I think at the heart of this is the fact that your government appointed a friend of a paedophile into a position. So it's almost sort of slightly ironic, not to mention other questions around the speed and extent and remit of inquiries into the grooming gangs issues and the like. But I guess there's another issue to move on to that I think's at the heart of all of this as well. Put aside the decision to get rid of your chief of staff to try and protect your own skin is the question about whether MPs do still back the Prime Minister. The vote last week was incredibly damaging to him. Do you think he still has the authority of the party, the parliamentary party?
I've been genuinely shocked by the support that he has. So there have been people that have not always voted with the government that have been messaging me over the weekend saying they feel very strongly that he should stay. And it's one of the reasons they feel it is because of the overwhelming and surprising message that we're getting back from the constituency. When I've been out this weekend, the things they've been telling me is, Duck, you've got to support him, he's got to stay in place. I did some media last night and I got messages off the back of that as well saying thank you for speaking out. The emails I've had in my inbox of people I've never heard from before saying we need to stay with him. What's happened is that we've all been scarred by years and years of absolute chaos. We've seen our mortgages go up. We've all felt let down and we haven't been able to deliver. So I want us to stay with Keir Starmer, but so do the constituents and the wider party. The most frustrating thing is that we're doing some incredible things in government. Just last Tuesday, I got to vote to take kids out of my area out of poverty. That's absolutely unbelievable, but nobody's listening to us because this story is rightly at the front and centre. We've now had a resignation. I want the Prime Minister to double down on his commitment to victims, which I know that he holds so dear. And then I want us to continue to deliver for victims, but also for people up and down the country that desperately need a Labour government that's competent, stable and functioning well.
I guess just the final question, Natalie, is I totally get the messages you must be getting from your constituents who obviously matter enormously. But on the MPs, why did they not back the Prime Minister last week on a matter of unbelievable personal importance to him if they genuinely still support him?
I think he was backed last week. I loved it Wednesday. There was absolute cross-party consensus that we needed full disclosure. There can't be any kind of cover-up around what happened.
But that was forcing the government to change their amendment. So they didn't back.
It's our job as
wanted.
backbench MPs to make sure that we get into a position that is right. There was cross-party consensus that we needed to get there. The debate was a strong and lively one. We got to the right place and we'll have a full picture of what happened when all of those documents are released. I am totally loyal to the Prime Minister and I felt very strongly that we should support that motion last week, as we did.
Natalie, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's the type of MP he needs right now.
Yeah, it is.
Very, very loudly supporting him this morning after all of the pressures of the last week.
It'll be interesting to see how many of the others follow the same line. Now, a really important story next, because some pretty serious flaws with the UK's transport network for people living with a disability have been laid bare. 6
wheelchair users tried to travel to central London with just 48 hours' notice, but only one managed to complete the trip. Well, we're joined now by Gary Dawson. He's a spokesperson for the Spinal Injuries Association, which carried out the attempts. Thanks so much for joining us on this. I know you weren't one of the 6, but tell us your takeaways from their attempts last week.
Well, good morning and thank you for having me on today. Yes, it's when we challenged 6 of our volunteers at the Spinal Injuries Association and giving them a 48-hour window to use public transport to get to our nation's capital. There was an instant amount of apprehension felt by all of them because they knew how much the challenges are going to, and the barriers that's in place for people who are in similar situations like myself, who are wheelchair users or living with physical disabilities. And if you watch the videos, it's evident just how quickly our infrastructure can fail. You know, everything from not being able to get up a ramp, as you're seeing on your screen now, to to sudden platform changes. Even black cabs that had to be utilised when tram stops weren't accessible and the underground wasn't able to be accessed. The ramps weren't sufficient for the wheelchair users who tried to use them, and even the cost implications from that. You know, the public transport would have been so much cheaper than I think it was a £52 taxi that someone had to take because of, again, the failing infrastructure. And I know myself, they say, being paralysed from the chest down, being a full-time wheelchair user, when you're faced with these kind of challenges that you know you're going to face every single day, it becomes quite apprehensive sometimes just to leave your house, let alone go out and get a job or go and be part of society.
I'm really glad we're doing this story because I feel like this is one of those things where if you don't have a problem with mobility, you don't even think about it. I mean, if I look at myself, well, I kind of went around London absolutely merrily for however many years, fine. As soon as you have a pram, you're like, hang on a minute, this is actually really, really difficult. And that is such a small thing compared to someone who is in a wheelchair. How important do you think it is to have policymakers who have disabilities, for example, just to make sure that the pressure and the difficulties that people are experiencing are actually being recognised?
Oh, it's hugely important. When you think about there's 7.5 million people in the UK who live with a disability. Disability will come to every single person at some point, whether you know through accidents or illness or diagnosis, or just by aging. As the aging population requires the infrastructure to work around, you know, being step free and making life that little bit easier. So it should be a priority for every single person, really, and every single lawmaker should be thinking of not just that the wheelchair user, because it's very visual and it's very obvious when that person gets stuck. I recently got stuck on a Metrolink platform, 2 broken lifts, no ramp, and 4 flights of stairs. I just had to get on a train and carry on to the next junction and push back. But that's they say, mine's a very visible disability. There's a lot of hidden disabilities out there, or people who are struggling with arthritis. So I say pushing prams, carrying heavy loads, or just elderly. And when the system fails them, it means that the system only works for that group of people who are mobile. And when the system works, I want to point out, it's fantastic. It's so enabling and fills you with this level of independence that makes you feel you can take on the world. But when it fails, it just destroys you, and it destroys your hope that you can continue to be part of society. And when it does fail, again, it's not just that it has failed, but it's the length of time it takes for things to be fixed or to be changed. And sometimes it's so frustrating when you're looking at this broken system and feeling like a second-class citizen that they're not even getting around to, say, repairing it anytime soon.
Gary, just finally, because we're nearly out of time, what's your message to those in power? What are you seeking from all of this?
We're seeking accountability. We want people to look at the system and say, right, how can we make it fair for all? If they make this infrastructure inclusive, then everyone will be able to use it freely. That freedom of movement is a right within the UK. And if you're able to access your local town centre, if you're able to get on a bus, if you're able to utilise the systems that are in place, people can start living. And that might be the difference between somebody going on getting a volunteer job or going on getting paid work or being able to look after their kids without feeling trapped in your own home or a victim of society.
Gary, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much.
Gary Dawson there.
Now, at least 5 people have died in floods in Portugal and Spain. Thousands of residents have been evacuated from rising waters after Storm Leonardo battered the Iberian Peninsula this week. The region now bracing for even more flooding. Our correspondent Molly Malone reports.
A succession of storms bringing relentless rain and swamping parts of Spain and Portugal, with thousands of people forced to evacuate their homes. For days, the picture has been the same, heavy flooding leaving people stranded and at the mercy of rescue teams, with entire streets submerged in water.
We are worried. A lot of people have lost everything.
Never, nothing like this. There was one in 1963, but nothing like this. It didn't rise as much as this one.
An elderly man in southern Portugal died after his car was swept away. As authorities searched in Malaga for a woman that was missing after trying to rescue her dog, a body was later found nearby. Spanish farmers have warned that the rain has already caused millions of euros worth of damage to crops, while hundreds of roads have been closed across the country. The European Commission's president has said support for both countries will be available to help aid recovery and rebuild the damage. And some support has already been coming for people and their pets. Many will be leaving their homes not knowing the extent of the damage when they return. But there is a sense of pragmatism here.
Instead of crying, now we have to fix things and get on with it. There isn't much else to do anyway. Take everything out, clean everything, and tidy up little by little. We just have to clean up for a while. I'll need a few months to cover all the expenses. That's just how it is.
The situation is serious, with saturated land raising fears of landslides. Portugal's Prime Minister has described the level of rain as unprecedented, activating emergency measures in certain areas for at least another week. Molly Malone, Sky News.
We're going to have a quick look at the weather now.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
There'll be further potentially disruptive rain this week, and it'll turn colder with wintry hazards possible by Friday. As for this morning, it'll be mild and rather murky with patchy rain or drizzle for many, but the northwest and southeast will be mainly dry. Northeastern Scotland and the far southwest can expect more general rain. Most places will see little change into the afternoon, remaining quite grey and damp, but northeastern Scotland will turn drier. Northwestern Scotland will stay mostly fine, while central and southeastern England will brighten. It should be mild but breezy for many.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Coming up, I don't know if you've been watching the Winter Olympics, but me and Wilfred have been hooked, and we're going to be talking to Eddie the Eagle, one of our most famous ever Winter Olympians.
Sky News has been given exclusive data showing every Palestinian who has been killed in Gaza since the war began. Our analysis of this pattern in the killings suggests that entire families were wiped out in their homes or shelters. The data and forensics team is a multi-skilled unit dedicated to providing transparent journalism from Sky News.
We located footage of the aid drop to a tent camp in central Gaza.
These airdrops are falling in extremely populated areas.
We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite imagery, social media, and other open source information. And this is just one of the strikes and incidents we've been able to geolocate across Gaza.
Sky News has found Nazi speeches and marching music have been used as background sound on tens of thousands of TikTok videos as far-right groups try and spread their message.
Sky News has seen 72,000 posts used in this way. There's no evidence yet of foul play at Heathrow. It shows weaknesses that enemies could take advantage of. Elon Musk says it is, quote, a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America. Supporters say it saves lives and projects American power and influence.
I think we would generally be called far right, sure.
It's called Return to the Land, and they invited me in.
A lot of people are going to be, why are you making Nazi references? Right. Well, why wouldn't I?
Its founder says he is building a fortress for the white race.
It's a racial association. I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
We followed a social media trail that led us to Bristol, where a confrontation between protesters erupted into a full-scale riot.
Here it really is pitched battle skirmishes, hurling missiles, throwing punches.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent.
There's a fresh look to your news from 10 on Sky News.
It's a new show called The Wrap, every night of the week.
We'll still bring you the day's biggest stories.
but with more lively debate,
More in-depth commentary,
and more of what you need to know.
plus a look at what's making tomorrow's headlines.
The Wrap.
Everything wrapped up for you from 10 on Sky News.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think is really unusual? Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started. Well, the Winter Olympics is underway. So many events going on. It's all been very exciting, I have to say. And Team GB's mixed curlers are going to be finding out their semi-final opponents in the Winter Olympics this morning. Just one of the exciting things had to come.
Elsewhere in Italy, I don't know if you saw the skier Lindsey Vonn crashed barely 20 seconds into her downhill run. The American was competing despite injuring her knee just days earlier. The 41-year-old clipped a gate with her arm and crashed hard down the mountain. Mountains treated her on the course before she was airlifted away.
Yeah, she's since had surgery on a leg fracture. She's in a stable condition. It was actually pretty moving watching this because you saw the American athletes who was in first place, obviously happy by the fact that she was in the gold medal spot, but she was crying. She was so worried about her teammate, someone who I guess is such an absolute legend of this sport as well.
And you saw again the extreme danger and bravery you need in most of these Winter Olympic sports. And someone who knows a little bit about that is former Winter Olympian Eddie the Eagle. Very good morning to you, Eddie. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Yes, I've broken a few bones in my time as a ski jumper, I can say.
Well, I wonder if you'd broken a bone and then still gone ahead with it, which I guess is what Lindsey Vonn did. But I mean, it takes great commitment and bravery and risk-taking to be in many of these sports.
Oh, absolutely, and that's what makes the Winter Olympics, I think, it's so special for people because they're such unusual sports. We're not a winter nation, really, as such. We've got a curling school up in Scotland, so we can usually do quite well at that, but we're not really known as a winter nation. So, they're very unusual sports, and but they're great fun. But there's that element of risk as well, and but that's part of the sport. That's what we love doing.
And that's why your own story is so inspiring, I think, actually. So you obviously competed for Great Britain in, I think, the 1988 Games, but you'd only been ski jumping for 22 months before that. And I also love this. You practised on the dry slope at Gloucester Ski Centre growing up because there were no ski jumps in the UK.
No, there weren't. I didn't have anything, competing back in Calgary in 1988 yet, and I did it in 22 months. And I was amazed when Readly, the newspaper and magazine app, got in touch and said, do you know you're one of the most popular Winter Olympic moments from past Olympics? And people still remember very fondly me all the way, back then 38 years ago. And so if they're watching Cortina now and they get inspired, they can go on to their retro Olympic Winter Olympic series, and look at past stories like Torvill and Dean from 1984, myself from 1988 in the Jamaican bobsled team, and lots of other stories. And people love the Winter Olympics.
What does it sort of say, Eddie, about the progress that all of these winter sports in general have made in the UK that, as we just outlined, you'd only been doing it for 22 months when you took part? Clearly, we're still not naturally a winter sports nation, but there's been great progress.
Oh, absolutely. When I was skiing back in the day, we didn't have indoor ski slopes like we do now. We have about 6 indoor ski slips now with real snow. And when I opened the first one back in 1992, I was telling people then that, probably within the next 10, 15, 20 years, we'll start producing better skiers, better snowboarders. And a lot of our snowboarders now, started on an indoor ski slope. And that's the first progression. Then hopefully if they can find the finance to get out into Europe and get on the big snow areas, they'll hopefully produce better athletes in the future, especially winter athletes. But it all starts on a dry ski slope or an indoor ski slope with real snow. So we are making more and more progress.
Eddie, can I ask you about this story because it is your sport? Ski jumping. I saw this over the week. I thought this was a joke, and I honestly had to check if it was the 1st of April. Because over the weekend, there was a story that ski jumpers potentially have injected their penises to become more aerodynamic. I mean, is this? I still wonder if this is a joke, but it's not. I mean, it's not been proven, but the story is not a joke.
No, but over the years, even back then when I was jumping, the jumpers do try and find these very creative ideas to try and get, like webbing in their fingers, between their fingers, so it'll catch air, or webbing between their elbow and their chest, or webbing between their knees to get that lift, so they have that slight advantage over everybody else. And of course, if they're injecting parts of their body before they're measured for a suit, then their suit gets that little bit bigger, and that can help them fly through the air. But to be fair, if you're jumping in the ski jumping competition, a gust of wind, maybe 1 or 2 miles an hour faster coming up the hill than your competitors, that will give you an extra advantage too. So that will, it swings and roundabouts, and there's lots of unforeseeables and variables. But whether it'll be an advantage for anybody is who knows. I don't think it will.
This wasn't done in 1988, though. You can confirm that much for us.
I wouldn't have tried that back in 1988. It would have been too risky for me.
Thank you so much. Great to speak to you. I should say I made Wilf ask that question, not me, so thanks for taking one for us.
I thought it wasn't true, but it's possible. Eddie, thanks so much for joining us. We are at a break for this hour. We'll be right back with all of the day's developments.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Good morning, it is 8 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Rich and Frost.
With Sophy and Wilfred, good morning from me as well. Lots ahead.
It's the start of a critical week that could decide Keir Starmer's political future after his Chief of Staff quits.
Pro-Hong Kong democracy campaigner and British citizen Jimmy Lai jailed for 20 years for national security offences.
Bad Bunny mostly avoids the politics for his Super Bowl halftime show, but it still got President Trump angry, and the Seahawks, by the way, also beat the New England Patriots.
Also this morning, we'll be joined by Reform's new MP, Robert Jenrick.
And we'll be discussing social media giants who are facing claims they are addictive by design. It's a trial that could fundamentally change how they operate.
Good morning. Morgan McSweeney, Keir Starmer's right-hand man, has gone. He quit yesterday over his decision to push for Peter Mandelson to get the US ambassador job. It's impossible to overstate just how important McSweeney has been for the Starmer project. And in losing him, Starmer has played what is perhaps his last defensive card.
Now, the question is, will it be enough to save his premiership? Keir Starmer will be hoping that with his kind of lightning rod Chief of Staff gone, the party can move on from the Mandelson saga. But of course, his leadership rivals are already circling. They have been for some time as well. We can talk about that with Mari. So, big picture first. Monday morning, Morgan McSweeney left yesterday. Where is the Prime Minister? Where's his position?
So, really, number 10 is in SOS mode, right? So it slightly reminds me of the days where we had Operation Save Big Dog for Boris Johnson. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And basically, there's a moment where it's all about trying to find a way to save Keir Starmer. And that is essentially where we are. So this week's agenda is all going to be about trying to persuade the public and MPs why Keir Starmer should stay in his job, why he's a good guy, why he's the right person to implement some of these changes and some of this work that's supposedly going to be done very urgently as a result of the Mandelson scandal. And so that is really the only job of this week, persuading the public and his own MPs to basically let him hang on in there and prove himself. And so we've got Keir Starmer addressing the Parliamentary Labour Party this evening. He's also going to be addressing the Women's Parliamentary Labour Party on Wednesday after PMQs. We also are expecting to hear more from him later in the week about some of this work that he's got officials to start instigating last week as well. And he wants really everybody to remember and to be focused on what he says is his commitment to public service. He wants everyone to be very aware of what he has contributed and what he is focused on and the kind of work he's already done in terms of standards in public life as well. So that is the kind of agenda for the week. And that is what one number 10 really want everyone to be focused on. Easier said than done when you've got many MPs in the Labour Party who are feeling angry, disappointed, disgusted, some very much regicidal. And that is a lot harder to turn around.
Let's just listen to what Cabinet Minister Jackie Smith had said.
How's that focus going? Is the party focused? Is the cabinet focused?
Yeah, well, I believe they are, and I believe that they should be.
Do you really?
Well,
all of them?
I've just said I think some of them should probably concentrate a bit more, and certainly they should get their advisors to concentrate a bit more on the change we're making to the country rather than the change that might happen to the leadership of the Labour Party at some point in the distant future. And that's what the Prime Minister is and needs to be focused on.
Mari, I think that the meeting with the Parliamentary Labour Party later today is going to be absolutely fascinating. In the very short term, there's not quite the same clear-cut mechanisms as there were in the Tory party to sort of start the process to trigger things unwinding. And I guess with that in mind, the focus kind of needs to be on the cabinet, who are, despite some we were laughing about this earlier, ironic leaks over the weekend from allies of certain cabinet members. Oh, I told him not to appoint.
Very helpful.
They are rather all bound in on that decision because they've come out publicly to support it. They didn't, resign over it when he was appointed. So it's hard to see how the cabinet could trigger the next step.
Yeah, I think the difficulty for the cabinet will be whether they make the calculation that this is what they want Keir Starmer to end his premiership over. Now, I think there'll be calculations about actually whether it might be more helpful to allow him to slowly drown, politically speaking, until May, allow him to take responsibility for May and the disasters that are predicted in May for Labour, and then start a clean slate after that. What new leader is going to want to come in and have to take responsibility for a bloodbath in your local elections in May? So some people will be thinking to themselves, hold on a second, maybe we should hang on to him until that difficult part is over. Other people will argue, hey, look, he'll be gone by the end of the week. This is completely over for him. And actually, like, the public are not going to want to talk about Epstein and Mandelson for the next however many months until the May elections. There will also be that calculation. But I think you're right to say that there will be people in the cabinet, some more than others, who will be concerned about an association with this decision around Mandelson and whether that might damage them as well. And therefore, that will also be factoring into the calculation. As much as there have been these briefings coming out, so far, we've had nothing on the record. And I think when cabinet ministers start to go on the record, looking unsupportive of the PM, that's when we can see the writing on the wall.
Really interesting, Mari. Interesting, Mari's talking there as well about, save big dog. There are parallels with Boris Johnson. We'll be talking to Lee Kane in the next hour, actually, who was like right at the heart of that kind of Boris Johnson premiership. So it'd be interesting to see any parallels.
What's the equivalent nickname?
I'll leave that one to you.
Does he have a nickname, Keir Starmer? I don't think it'll be Big Dog.
Yeah, let's move on, shall we?
Yeah. We'll be covering, of course, the political story as it develops. An awful lot really does rest on what happens over the next week or so.
Now, the pro-democracy campaigner and British citizen Jimmy Lai has been jailed for 20 years in Hong Kong after being convicted of national security offences.
He denies the charges. The Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is now joining the voices calling for him to be released on humanitarian grounds. Here's our Asia correspondent, Helen Ann Smith. She's got the latest. A warning, her report does contain flash photography.
Today really marks the conclusion, the culmination, if you like, of an over 5-year journey for Jimmy Lai. 5 years since he was arrested in Hong Kong under national security offences, accused of publishing seditious material and colluding with foreign forces. And the eyes of the world really have been on this trial, on this sentence. How would China deal with Hong Kong's arguably most well-known dissident, most well-known pro-democracy voice? And the answer really is extremely harshly. This sentence that he has been given, 20 years in prison, really is on the far harsher end, I think, of what anybody expected in this case. And his family and his lawyers have long said that a long sentence of this nature would essentially amount to a death sentence, if you like, for Jimmy Lai, a life imprisonment sentence, because he's an elderly man. He's in his late 70s. He's not in good health. He has diabetes. He has heart conditions. His children have said that he's so weak that his fingernails are falling out. He's been kept in solitary confinement for over 5 years. So I think a really deeply distressing day and moment for his family and his lawyers who've been advocating for his release. Let's take a step back and just remind you who Jimmy Lai is. He is really a Hong Kong rags to riches story. He came to Hong Kong as a child stowaway. He worked as a child labourer before building up a massive clothing empire, before turning his hand to media. And he was the owner and publisher of this brash tabloid-style newspaper in Hong Kong called Apple Daily. And that publication, and Jimmy Lai at the head of it, was unashamedly pro-democracy, unabashed about its criticism, his criticism, if you like, of the Beijing authorities. And he has long been a thorn in China's side. But the focus on him really honed in around the 2019 pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong, protests that he took part in and supported. And it was after that that this big sweeping national security law came in, and it was under that that he was arrested. Look, in court, the judge described his crime crimes as grave, as premeditated, and said that they would not be taking Jimmy Lai's medical condition into consideration as part of the sentencing. But I just want to put this sentence in some context, because it's actually double the longest sentence we have seen thus far for a Hong Konger under this national security law. Even China's most famous dissident, Liu Xiaobo, who's the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, sentenced for sedition and other related crimes back in 2009, even he only got 11 years. So 20 years. Look, this is absolutely China making an example of Jimmy Lai, absolutely wanting to show the world that it is not going to back down on these type of cases.
Helen Ann Smith there for us. And by the way, in just 5 or so minutes, we'll be speaking to Jimmy Lai's son, Sebastien Lai. He'll be joining us in the next 5 minutes.
Now, Japan's Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi is on course for a landslide victory in yesterday's snap election.
The Conservative Prime Minister predicted to win a supermajority in the country's lower house. She called the snap election, hoping to capitalise on her popularity in the polls, a bet that seems certainly to have paid off.
Yeah, the gamble worked, and the election's now been watched very closely by China, where officials are concerned that Japan could take a tougher stance on defence and also on Taiwan.
President Trump has given his support and congratulations, saying she's a highly respected, very popular leader. Sanai's bold and wise decision to call for an election paid off big time. The wonderful people of Japan who voted with such enthusiasm will always have my strong support. Obviously, she's their first female prime minister, inherited the leadership without an election, called a snap election, which obviously comes with significant risks, but it's paid off. It looks like 316 of 465 seats to her party, but more importantly, with her coalition party, 352 of the seats in total, about 75%. So, again, importantly in Japan, that allows them to ignore the upper house. With a 2/3 majority vote, they don't need the rubber stamp of the upper house, and expected now that she'll plough on with a very expansionary fiscal policy, spend, spend, spend. So we've got to keep an eye on Japanese bond markets going forward. But this morning, they're relatively calm, and the Japanese stock market's at an all-time high.
Now, the Jeffrey Epstein files have suggested that the King's brother Andrew might have shared confidential reports with the late paedophile that as well Andrew was working as a UK trade envoy. We can talk about this a little bit more with Olivia, who joins us now. So this is the latest revelation, just the latest one to come out of these files.
The latest revelation, and follows on from the Prime Minister accusing Peter Mandelson of betraying our country after he allegedly shared sensitive information with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Now it appears that Andrew may have done the same. These emails that have been released by the US Department of Justice seem to show that he shared reports from his visits to Hong Kong, China, Vietnam and Singapore. One he forwarded just 5 minutes after he received it from his own special advisor. And he also appears to have looped Jeffrey Epstein in to a confidential brief on investment opportunities in the reconstruction of Afghanistan. Now, Andrew was, of course, a special representative in trade and investment between 2001 and 2011, and the government guidance on those roles makes clear that he had a duty of confidentiality not to share sensitive commercial or political information about relevant markets. Now, we've had no comment from Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor this morning to these latest allegations. He has, of course, in the past always denied any wrongdoing in any of this. It follows on from those images that were released from the Department of Justice files that show him apparently on all fours over a young woman, although, of course, appearing in the images in those files doesn't necessarily mean that there has been any wrongdoing that has taken place. He has now moved out of Royal Lodge to the King's Sandringham estate. He's been stripped of all his royal titles, and he had to pay millions to Jeffrey Epstein's victim, Virginia Giuffre. Again, all of these things have happened, but Andrew continues to vehemently deny that he has done anything wrong. And, of course, we've put all of these allegations to him. Should we hear, we will, of course, reflect whatever he has to say.
Yeah, and just to follow on from what Olivia was saying, Andrew has obviously previously denied any wrongdoing, and also being named or pictured is not an indication in itself of wrongdoing.
Now, the Super Bowl was last night. The Seattle Seahawks beat the New England Patriots. A lot of focus, of course, in the build-up and since on the halftime show, which starred Puerto Rican singer Bad Bunny. He was the star attraction, and he attracted ire from President Trump. Some wondered in the lead-up whether that would be because he was explicit in any criticism towards President Trump's immigration policies, but it was for other reasons.
Yeah. President Trump didn't like the fact that he sung it all in Spanish, is what it seems to be. So he went on Truth Social and he said that the show was absolutely terrible, the worst ever, and nobody understood a word this guy is saying, apart from all the people who speak Spanish, probably.
Exactly, but I guess it wasn't as explicit as some wondered whether it would be, but definitely dividing opinion. As we said, the Seattle Seahawks, the Super Bowl champions. More now on the 20-year jail sentence handed down to Jimmy Lai this morning. And Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper is calling for him to be released on humanitarian grounds. The pro-democracy campaigner and British citizen had been convicted of national security offences, charges which, of course, he denied. I'm delighted to say that Jimmy's son, Sebastien Lai, joins us in the studio now. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you feeling? How's your reaction to the fact that he's been given this 20-year sentence?
I mean, I think many people expected it. This is essentially a life sentence, a death sentence. He's 78, 20 years, he'd be 100. Even if he got 4 or 5 years, in the condition he's in, given his health, he would most likely die in prison. I think how ridiculous it is how long this has been, how long this journey has been. It's been 5 years. And finally now they gave a sentence that they could have given on day one when they arrested him. It's a show trial.
You just said this, forgive me for dwelling on this, but you think he will now die in jail?
I think if more isn't done to fight for his release, he will very likely die in prison. He's got heart issues, he's got diabetes. The last 5 years he's been kept in solitary confinement. I mean, these are inhumane conditions for any prisoner. And my father is 78, and he's in there because of the courage that he has shown in fighting for the freedoms of Hong Kong.
Do you know how he's doing mentally and physically, but mentally, have you spoken to him of late?
Because I campaign on his behalf, I haven't spoken to him in more than 5 years. I can't go back to Hong Kong. When I heard that when sentencing came down, he was stoic and smiled, because obviously he knew that this was going to happen. He knew that, 5 years ago, he knew that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that this was a very real possibility for fighting for freedom and democracy in Hong Kong.
Just to dwell on this, I mean, so you haven't even been able to speak to him?
Yeah, I haven't seen my father in the last 5 years. I hear how his health has deteriorated only through other people, how he's lost 10 kilos over the last year alone, and it's incredibly heartbreaking, but it's kind of these bittersweet moments where you know that though his health is failing him, his spirit and his faith is still strong, and he's still holding on.
When Keir Starmer got back from his trip to China, he was speaking in Parliament last week. He said, "I raised the case of Jimmy Lai and called for his release." We've heard the Foreign Secretary this morning again call for his release. Do you think that's going to work? What do you make of their, I guess, claims that they're trying to get him released?
I would hope so. And I think it's one of those situations where you could only put all your hope on this. Look, we talk about closer relationships with China. That's what the trip signifies. That's what the embassy signifies. And how can we have closer relationships? How can we normalize relationships if a British citizen who's 78, whose only crime is standing up for freedom and democracy, defending his colleagues, defending the people of Hong Kong, is still in jail in Hong Kong? I mean, this is a very easy thing for Hong Kong and China to do, to show good faith to our nation, to show good faith to our government. Put this man on a plane, send him over to the UK, it will take them 2 hours. If they're not even willing to do something like that, I think that tells you all you need to know about the relationship.
But did I misunderstand? Are you hopeful that he might get released?
I'm hopeful, yeah. I mean, I think if the government does what is said it will do, which is, they're raising it, they're saying that this trip to China was a good opportunity to raise the case. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is, but I'll keep fighting.
I guess my question on this is, some people have criticised the trip as not yielding that much yet, at least. If there was a deal done, or there is to be a deal done, would you in fact expect it to now happen in the weeks and months ahead after sentencing, or would it have happened already? I honestly have no idea. All I know is that the Prime Minister said the case was raised. Now, I don't know what that means, but look, it's one of those situations where I'm just
holding out hope. I think we are in a situation now where it is in both Hong Kong and China's best interest to release him as well. This is very damaging for their reputation. If my father dies, he becomes a martyr. It's not only damaging for their reputation, it's damaging for their legal system. So it's only upside for Hong Kong and China. And the fact that they're not willing to do that, it tells you a lot about how they think about the world.
And I guess just to wrap up, Sebastien, I know, obviously, which you've spoken very poignantly about and powerfully about, what matters here most of all is to your father. But to conclude as to whether we should consider China just an adversary, a challenger, a friend or an enemy, how do you think of them?
I think a lot of people, when they think about China, they worry about national security, rightly so, right? You hear spies of parliament, many things that they have done in this country that they seem to have gotten away with it. And a lot of people are rightly worried, dissidents, but I think the general public. And again, my father's case is the ultimate litmus test, because they haven't done anything to abate these national security concerns. And if they're not even willing to put a 78-year-old man on a plane and send him back here, well, that tells you all you need to know.
Sebastien, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Speaking once again very thoughtfully and powerfully, as your father, as his father was sentenced to 20 years today.
Yeah, extraordinary composure. Really, thank you.
Now, landmark trials are getting underway in Los Angeles, which could change how we use social media.
So for the first time, social media companies will face a jury with Meta and YouTube accused of creating addictive and harmful products. Here's our science and technology reporter, Nikki Carroll.
Social media is on trial, and if it loses, it could change the way we live online. So in LA, there's this mega trial underway, accusing social media platforms of being addictive by design, a bit like cigarettes or tobacco. For years, people have tried to sue companies like Meta, TikTok, Snap, YouTube, saying that social media has damaged them. But those cases have been largely unsuccessful. So now, lawyers are trying a different angle of attack. So what makes this trial different? The first difference is the jury. These companies have never faced trial by jury. The second difference is the scale. So the testimonies of more than 1,500 people have been considered as part of these trials, and we're expecting around 22 bellwether trials, test trials, to help lawyers assess future cases. Now, the third difference, potentially the most important difference, is the actual allegation. They're not talking here about the content on social media being harmful. They're saying that the product itself, i.e. the social media platform, is defective and harmful by design. The first of these trials focuses on allegations by a then 19-year-old Californian. She says that Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube and Instagram caused her to have body image issues, anxiety and depression. Now, Snapchat and TikTok have already settled out of court, but Meta and YouTube are still on trial. They say there's no clear scientific link between tech use and addiction, and that there'll need to be really strong evidence that they've significantly harmed young people. Now, if the social media companies lose, they'll have to pay compensation, but they'll also have to change the way they operate. And it'll pave the way for the scores of other social media trials that are coming their way.
Nikki Carroll there for us. It's going to be a very interesting case to watch.
At least 5 people have died in floods in Portugal and Spain, and thousands of residents have also been evacuated because of the rising waters from Storm Leonardo battering the Iberian Peninsula last week. The region's also bracing for more flooding.
Our correspondent Molly Malone has this.
A succession of storms bringing relentless rain and swamping parts of Spain and Portugal, with thousands of people forced to evacuate their homes. For days, the picture has been the same, heavy flooding leaving people stranded and at the mercy of rescue teams, with entire streets submerged in water.
We are worried. A lot of people have lost everything.
Never, nothing like this. There was one in 1963, but nothing like this. It didn't rise as much as this one.
An elderly man in southern Portugal died after his car was swept away. As authorities searched in Malaga for a woman that was missing after trying to rescue her dog, a body was later found nearby. Spanish farmers have warned that the rain has already caused millions of euros worth of damage to crops, while hundreds of roads have been closed across the country. The European Commission's president has said support for both countries will be available to help aid recovery and rebuild the damage. And some support has already been coming for people and their pets. Many will be leaving their homes not knowing the extent of the damage when they return. But there is a sense of pragmatism here.
Instead of crying, now we have to fix things and get on with it. There isn't much else to do anyway. Take everything out, clean everything, and tidy up little by little. We just have to clean up for a while. I'll need a few months to cover all the expenses. That's just how it is.
The situation is serious, with saturated land raising fears of landslides. Portugal's Prime Minister has described the level of rain as unprecedented, activating emergency measures in certain areas for at least another week. Molly Malone, Sky News.
So the Oasis singer, Noel Gallagher, is set to be honoured as Songwriter of the Year at the Brit Awards.
But has released... The controversial part of this is he hasn't written a new song this year.
No. He's released no new songs since 2023, so it does seem a little bit bizarre, doesn't it?
Do we know he's going to win it or he was nominated? That's the other question I've got. Because they haven't had the awards last night?
It's set to take home as a decision. I think it's going to happen. 41. So he did a lot of gigging, but he didn't write any new music. So you can kind of understand why some people are pretty angry about it. This is Holly Fletcher, who's a songwriter. She's collabed with people like Charlie XCX. She says, by giving the award to Noel, the Brits are denying another songwriter who's had an excellent year releasing new material their opportunity to be recognised. So it certainly causes a bit of a stir.
Does seem like one. I still hate talking about this tour because I didn't go. I just have major FOMO from it all.
The Oasis tour, yeah.
So every time it comes up, I'm just like, oh, should have gone.
They'll do it again. They'll need money in a couple of years, right?
Yeah. So,
don't worry.
So we'll get another chance. Still to come, we're going to be talking more, of course, about the big story of the day. Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, who resigned yesterday lunchtime. We'll be right back.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report. And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Welcome back. A reminder of the top stories this hour. There are calls for Sir Keir Starmer to take more accountability over the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US Ambassador. The Prime Minister's right-hand man, Morgan McSweeney, resigned after accepting full responsibility for supporting the decision.
Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper is pushing for Jimmy Lai to be released from prison in Hong Kong on humanitarian grounds. That's after he was sentenced to 20 years overnight. The pro-democracy campaigner and British citizen was found guilty of conspiracy to collude with foreign forces and of publishing seditious material. He denies the charges.
The Seattle Seahawks have been crowned champions of Super Bowl 60. Before the game, demonstrators handed out thousands of ice-out towels around the stadium in Santa Clara, California, encouraging spectators to raise the towels during game penalties. US President Donald Trump criticised the halftime show by Puerto Rican artist Bad Bunny.
Well, Keir Starmer fighting for his political future this morning after losing Morgan McSweeney. We can now talk to our next guest about it. You might be used to seeing him here for the Conservative Party, but he's here for Reform UK now, of course. Robert Jenrick joins us. Good to have you on the show.
Yeah, good morning.
Morgan McSweeney's out. Was it the right decision?
Well, look, the government appears to be collapsing into chaos now. The Prime Minister has no authority. There's an outright revolt against him from his own members of Parliament and the Cabinet. What really matters to the public, people watching your show this morning, will be that nothing is going to happen now. Government will be being brought to a standstill. I've seen this up close in previous Conservative governments. You know, there'll be no agenda. The issues that people are facing in their daily lives, whether it's wages, energy bills, crime, immigration, the NHS, are all just going to go into stasis now. And the public are going to be let down very badly in the weeks and the months to come.
I mean, I guess that is the argument of those who are in the pro-Keir Starmer camp. They're saying, yeah, we do remember what happened with the Conservatives, right? The merry-go-round of different prime ministers, and that didn't serve anybody. So does that not give him a chance of survival? Because, you know, memories can't be, you know, that old.
Well, look, I don't know. It's not... Ultimately, I'm not here to defend Keir Starmer or to tell the Labour Party what they should or shouldn't do. What I'm concerned about is the country and how we can move forward.
How long do you give him?
Look, he doesn't seem like he can continue. He has no authority right now. Nothing is going to be happening within government. The government is just turning in on itself. And I've watched that up close. I saw it with Boris, with Liz Truss, with Rishi. The loser in this is the British people, because people want a government now when there are so many challenges to be actually trying to solve the issues that people are facing in their daily lives. And instead, they're just going to get this complete chaos for months and months, which may well tip into an early general election.
Before because I want to talk about Nigel Farage's speech today, but I also just wanted to ask about what is going on with the Gorton and Denton by-election, because police are investigating after Reform sent out literature, campaign literature, from a kind of concerned neighbour that looked like they were handwritten, and they didn't state that that was funded by and distributed by the party. So that is a breach of electoral law. What went on?
So as I understand it, a letter was sent out to residents which was signed off by Reform, which had the legal, what's called an imprint, the sort of legal disclaimer at the bottom of it. But the printer, a local printer in Manchester, made an honest mistake and knocked that little last line off the letter before it was sent out. And they've put out a statement saying that that was their error, not Reform. So it's a perfectly normal thing. And look,
it does matter, though, doesn't it? This is first reported by the Manchester Mill.
Let's be honest.
You need to check it, right? Your political party.
They actually did check it, and it was a mistake by the printer, who was the one who.
But I mean, you need to check what's in the literature before someone's putting it through the door.
Well, I think it was direct mailed. So the last that Reform saw it was when they gave it to the printer, which was a reputable local printers. I mean, these mistakes happen. I've been elected 5 times. I've seen things like this happen from the Conservative Party, the Labour Party. What matters here is not a single piece of literature, and residents in Gorton and Denton, of course, no one wants to make these honest mistakes, but they do happen occasionally. I've seen them happen in plenty of other elections. What matters is this is an opportunity for residents of this area who have been let down. They had a Member of Parliament who essentially was disgraced, was forced to step down. They were not able to have Andy Burnham as their candidate.
The details of it, because of the electoral law, as you know, from our perspective,
Sure,
right? So worked with all the different things going on.
But I think you can appreciate that one piece of electoral, mail when people are getting hundreds through their door is not the big issue. It's getting the right person to represent that constituency.
Right, talk about that. Nigel Farage doing a speech today. He's going to say the Tories broke Britain and the arsonists are still at the top table for them. I mean, if the recent defections are anything to go by, those arsonists are at the top table for reform as well, aren't they?
No, because the people who've chosen to join Reform, there's only a small number of us, but the people who've chosen to join Reform are people who, firstly, are willing to be honest about the mistakes of the last Conservative government, to be honest about our role in them, and to have a proper diagnosis of how we move forward as a country. The problem in the Conservative Party is not just that it's still got these figures at the top table who were part of the last Conservative government, but that they're unrepentant for the mistakes that were made. So you've got the person who created the points-based immigration system saying that, well, nothing really wrong with it, it wasn't such a big mistake. You've got the person who
Who are you talking about there?
Well, Priti Patel, who's now the Shadow Foreign Secretary. You've got the person who allowed welfare to
Mel
balloon,
Stride.
who
Goodness
is now
me,
the Shadow
I can tell why you're
Chancellor.
unpopular in the Conservative Party.
Well, I'm not interested in that. What I care about is ultimately the country.
This
is what really matters here. You've had a failed Conservative government. Okay. I've been honest about that. You've now clearly got a failing Labour government. It looks like the Prime Minister is on the way out and there'll be the farce of a leadership contest and somebody else will come in, probably facing exactly the same challenges. It will fail again. But people really want change in the country.
My point
and that is what
that
reform
change,
is going to
like
offer.
genuinely. So you, Suella Braverman, Nadeem Zahawi, you were all members of a previous Conservative cabinet, and
Well, I resigned.
You can't just say
Sophie, I resigned from the last Conservative cabinet.
You were
because
members.
I believed it was failing.
You were members of a Conservative cabinet. It's like saying that someone's an arsonist and then giving them the lit match and inviting them to your house, isn't it?
Well, that would be like inviting the Conservative Party back into government. The reason I left the Conservative Party was precisely that, because I don't believe it's learnt its lessons. It would make the same mistakes all over again. The difference with reform is it is led by somebody in Nigel Farage who has been consistently right on the biggest issues facing the country, whether it's migration, net zero, getting growth going again in the economy.
One thing that I need to ask you about as well is this two-child benefit cap. So last week, you accidentally voted to scrap the two-child benefit cap. What happened?
I went into the wrong division lobby, and then what happens is the doors close and you don't have an opportunity to leave. So look, I didn't swipe my card, so there's a kind of technical debate about whether you voted or not. But look, obviously it was a mistake, and
I can see.
I didn't mean to do it.
I can see why you're confused, because Reform was in favour of scrapping it, and then all of a sudden they weren't in favour of scrapping it. So I mean, look, did you get confused about Reform's policy?
No, Reform's policy is clear.
Yeah, I know you know it now, but at that moment, did you not know what Reform's policy was?
Of course, it is, Sophie. And the point of this is that Reform's policy is that we will support those British families who are in work to have kids and support them. We don't want to support people who are not British citizens and to allow the welfare bill to continue to balloon as a result. And that's a sensible policy.
Just to be super clear, you knew what the policy was, you just got confused about which was the right lobby.
Yeah, look, I've been a Member of Parliament for 11 years.
Come on, you didn't know what it was, did you? You got confused over Reform's policy, no?
Sophie, of course I didn't. What
How many other times have you found yourself in the wrong lobby by mistake?
I think to me it's never happened, but I've seen plenty of other people do it over the years.
Bit of a coincidence.
I remember Michael Gove doing it once when he was the Conservative Party's chief whip, and he had to hide in a toilet in order not to end up voting. So look, it does happen to people. Of course, it's not ideal, but these things happen.
OK. Robert Jenrick speaking to us there. I should say we had a bit of a mention of the Gorton and Denton by-election just then, and you can see a full list of candidates for that election on your screens just now. So that's a full list of candidates at the Gorton and Denton by-election. The full list
always
going
plenty
on
of
there.
candidates.
There's always more than you think. And here you go.
I always think we're lucky that we are in TV, not radio, because you have to actually read them all out on radio. Anyway, that's coming on February the 26th. Now, the Prince of Wales is about to begin what could be his biggest diplomatic test as he visits Saudi Arabia for the first time.
Prince William's trip, requested by the UK government, is set to focus on trade and energy. And the former ambassador to Saudi Arabia, William Patey, joins us now. Great to have you with us. What do you make of the fact that Prince William's decided to make this visit?
Well, my understanding is it's his only official visit overseas this year, and the Foreign Office have clearly decided that Saudi Arabia is the best place to deploy the Crown Prince, Prince William. I think that's a right decision because the Saudis respect our royal family. Our royal family is kind of are the A-listers when it comes to royals around the world. Prince William is the same age as the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, only a few years in it. So it's making contact with the next generation of royals, and MBS is surrounded by people of a similar age. So he's continuing the good work his father did over 2 decades. Prince William visited Prince Charles, when he was the Crown Prince, visited Saudi Arabia over a dozen times. So this is a continuation of that use of the royal family to project soft power.
It's interesting you mentioned that point, because I do think the extent of Prince Charles's, when he was Prince Charles, visits to Saudi Arabia perhaps slightly undercovered, with full support of the British government, of course. It's interesting because you're going to have 2 crown princes meeting, one who's overwhelmingly powerful in his own nation, the other who essentially has no real power. But there is a point here, which I think you're alluding to, which is the Saudi royal family sort of disproportionately respects our royal family relative to our elected government, ironically coming at a time when, the authority of the elected government is perhaps a bit bumpy or volatile. Is there something to be said about that? Royal family respecting royal family because it stands the test of time?
Yes, well, it's an asset that Britain has that many other countries don't, so it's good to use it. I was in Saudi Arabia when, as he was then, Prince Charles visited twice, and he was very effective diplomat in projecting Britain's interest in Saudi Arabia, and he took a very strong interest in Islam and multiculturalism, and that was also respected. So it's an asset that we deploy sparingly. I was always anxious that Prince Charles would visit as often as he could, but the Foreign Office had other ideas and had to spread the goodwill around the world. But this is a good opportunity to enhance British-Saudi relations in a quite a soft way. I don't think he'll be there for a hard sell. I'm sure he's well briefed. I'm sure the King will have told him all about Saudi Arabia and given him some advice because he's pretty well versed in dealing with Saudi Arabia.
I guess there'll be people watching this thinking, should he be there, right? Because of the human rights abuses. I'm thinking, for example, the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, for one. What would you say to that?
Well, Saudi Arabia is a major trading partner to the UK. It's a G20 country. We export over £13 billion a year. We have investments of over £8 billion. The Saudis have similar level of investment here. They're a big security partner. We have similar interests in bringing the war in Sudan to an end, to ending the conflict in Yemen and supporting Syria as it moves to a new transition. So we have massive security interests. They're a counter-terrorism partner against Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So we have huge interests in Saudi Arabia. And the reality is we deal with lots of countries whose human rights policies and human rights experience may differ from us. And the reality in Saudi Arabia, of course, is in the last 5 years, there has been massive progress. I mean, Saudi Arabia was rightly criticised for the restrictions it placed on women. Well, that has virtually been transformed in the last 5 years under the Crown Prince. So it's not all bad news.
So, William, I wanted to ask your view as a obviously very high-profile former British ambassador to various countries. Rewind the clock for us. When you saw that Peter Mandelson was being appointed as ambassador to the US, what was your view at that moment in time?
I thought it was a good appointment. I thought he was the right sort of profile for it. I have to say, I'm a bit like the Prime Minister. I didn't quite know the extent of his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. I certainly didn't know he was up to no good in passing sensitive information, market-sensitive information to a financier. So, in the absence of that information, I thought he was a smart appointment. But in the light of what's come out, obviously disastrous for the Prime Minister.
Can I just say how refreshing it is to have someone who isn't wise after the fact, who wasn't like, actually, I knew this all along. It is genuinely, we appreciate your honesty, let's put it that way. And what are the vetting procedures like for ambassadors?
Well, by the time you get to ambassador, you've had quite a long period of developed vetting. I mean, I was vetted when I joined the Foreign Office. Every 5 years you get vetted. I suppose even a developed vetting process wouldn't necessarily have revealed private emails that Peter Mandelson had exchanged with Jeffrey Epstein. They're not able to intercept your emails. So it's interesting. I don't know if a more developed vetting process for the putative ambassador would have revealed these emails. So they have come out under another process. So I don't know the extent of Peter Mandelson's vetting, but he would have, given his access to very highly classified information, he would have had to have had what we call a developed vetting security clearance.
I guess just what's kind of revealed in your last two answers is there is a difference when you make a political appointment to an ambassadorial role versus promoting a already career diplomat. I guess your entire career and that of other career diplomats is almost prioritising having no conflicts of interest. And if, as a government, you make the point to pick someone politically, do you think it is then on the person making the appointment to take full responsibility for that decision, or with your first answer on this topic kind of in mind, do you think that it seemed sensible at the time?
Well, I think it did seem sensible. He made a massive mistake. I mean, the Prime Minister is always responsible for the appointment of senior ambassadors. It always goes to number 10. So whoever it had been, whether it had been a diplomat or a political appointee, would have had to have had number 10's approval, well, the Prime Minister's approval. I suppose the problem is that when it's a political appointee, it becomes much more political. If a career ambassador messes up, does something, never mind illegal, but does something that is immoral or lacks integrity, it's relatively simple for the government to recall him or her and basically sack them. A political appointee comes with a lot more baggage, and that's always a risk.
Finally, I was just wondering if you could give us a bit of an update on Iran. It's something that we're obviously, like many others, absolutely fascinated with in the programme, very keen to get a bit of a sense from you about where you see the latest.
Well, I think, we're at a sort of, we're in a bit of a joust. The Americans are in a bit of a joust with the Iranians. The Americans have moved a massive fleet towards Iran, basically threatening Iran and hoping to bring Iran to the negotiating table. Well, Iran have come to the negotiating table. They're negotiating in Oman. But all Iran wants to talk about is its nuclear weapons program. And of course, the Americans want to include the ballistic program. I mean, in the past, they have been criticised for only talking about nuclear and not talking about Iran's interference in Lebanon and Syria and Iraq and Yemen. Now, Iran's position in those countries has deteriorated in recent years, so slightly less of a priority. But the Americans definitely want to include ballistic missiles, and the Iranians don't. But the Iranians are under a lot of pressure domestically and internally. They need to get sanctions lifted. The Iranian regime is on its way out. We don't know when. Could be next week. Could be in a few years. But they're clearly failing to deliver for their people. Water shortages, electricity shortages, a currency in free fall. So there's pressure on the Iranians to negotiate. I suppose it's how hard the Americans press them on ballistic missiles. But our experience of Iranian negotiations over the years is they're always very difficult, and the Iranians are very hard to deal with on some of these issues.
Just finally, Sir William, on Jimmy Lai, obviously you would have seen he's sentenced to 20 years this morning. We just had a very moving interview with his son. The government continues to say they're pushing for his release. Is that to be expected, that nothing has come from that this thus far, or should the government have been more forthright? If granting an embassy, then we should get this type of thing in return?
It's always tricky to sort of know what you should trade. I mean, clearly, as the government attempts to have a more balanced relationship with China, as it approves the embassy, they might have a bit more leverage, and over a period of time, they might succeed in getting Jimmy Lai's sentence commuted, or him. I suspect he would be expelled from Hong Kong, come to Britain. There'll be a lot of diplomacy, quiet diplomacy going on. The Chinese don't respond well to threats, so the government will keep up the diplomatic pressure, I'm sure of that, and try and get him released.
Sir William, thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
My pleasure.
Right, let's get an update, shall we, on how the weather's looking, because I'm done with the rain, I'll be honest, but I don't think we've got good news ahead.
Yeah. Good luck.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Yeah, well, we did warn you. There's going to be more rain, potentially disruptive rain this week, and it's going to be colder as well, with wintry hazards possible by Friday. So it's going to be mild, that's good news, but murky again this morning, patchy rain, lots of drizzle about. The northwest and southeast are the lucky ones, because that should remain pretty dry. Northeastern Scotland and the far southwest can expect more general rain, I'm afraid to say. Most places will see a little change into the afternoon as well, pretty grey and damp.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
A busy weekend of sport. We're going to have the pick of it after the short break.
Sky News has been given exclusive data showing every Palestinian who has been killed in Gaza since the war began. Our analysis of this pattern in the killings suggests that entire families were wiped out in their homes or shelters. The data and forensics team is a multi-skilled unit dedicated to providing transparent journalism from Sky News.
We located footage of the airdrop to a tent camp in central Gaza.
These airdrops are falling in extremely populated areas.
We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite imagery, social media, and other open source information. Now, this is just one of the strikes and incidents we've been able to geolocate across Gaza.
Sky News has found Nazi speeches and marching music have been used as background sound on tens of thousands of TikTok videos as far-right groups try and spread their message.
Sky News has seen 72,000 posts used in this way. There's no evidence yet of foul play at Heathrow. It shows weaknesses that enemies could take advantage of. Elon Musk says it is, quote, a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America. Supporters say it saves lives and projects American power and influence.
I think we would generally be called far right, sure.
It's called Return to the Land, and they invited me in.
A lot of people are going to be, why are you making Nazi references? Right. Well, why wouldn't I?
Its founder says he is building a fortress for the white race.
It's a racial association. I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
We followed a social media trail that led us to Bristol, where a confrontation between protesters erupted into a full-scale riot.
Here it really is pitched battle skirmishes, hurling missiles, throwing punches.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent.
There's a fresh look to your news from 10 on Sky News.
It's a new show called The Wrap, every night of the week.
We'll still bring you the day's biggest stories,
but with more lively debate,
more in-depth commentary,
and more of what you need to know.
Plus a look at what's making tomorrow's headlines.
The Wrap.
Everything wrapped up for you from 10 on Sky News.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome, Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Know that, did you?
Sorry, we're laughing, but it's because we're quite excited about the Winter Olympics. An amazing beginning to them, I should say. The story of the weekend, though, it's been something pretty depressing because it was a huge crash that the American skier Lindsey Vonn had. It was just about 20 seconds into her downhill run.
And this, of course, came after she had torn her ACL in her knee in the build-up. Oh,
yeah, that's awful.
Now, the 41-year-old clipped a gate with her arm, crashed hard down the mountain, and medics then treated her on the course before she was airlifted away.
She's since had surgery on a leg fracture. What we can say is she is now in a stable condition, so that is good news.
Meanwhile, Team GB's Mia Brooks is hoping to take home a snowboarding medal when she competes in the big air later this evening. The 19-year-old fell on her first of 3 jumps in last night's qualifier, but stormed back to nail her next 2 tricks, coming 3rd overall.
Oh, I love it. Look at this. That's my evening sorted.
Epic.
Team GB's mixed curlers are going to find out 2 their semi-final opponents in the Winter Olympics this morning. The Scottish pair, Bruce Moët and Jen Dodd, secured the top spot in their group, a 9-6 victory over Italy. They only suffered 1 defeat to Switzerland out of 9 round-robin matches.
It's captivating. Now, critics of VAR have been given fresh ammunition to attack the technology after a 3rd Manchester City goal was ruled out late against Liverpool in dramatic style.
So Sky Sports pundit Gary Neville said it killed one of the moments of the season, and it did. So look, it was a chaotic end. Haaland threw on goal. You can see him being pulled back there, so there's a foul, but it just rolls in. And this is like the 97th minute, so it is carnage. Everyone's happy. For a neutral like myself, it was an amazing end. It then got VAR'd, and
they ruled out the goal.
Exactly, and a red card was given.
Which everyone's just let the goal go in.
Yeah, I mean, when you have both Liverpool and Man City...
It didn't change the result, is the key point.
This is it. And when you have both Liverpool and Man City who are saying, this is ridiculous, it's taking the magic out of the game, for the fans in the stadium, I mean, it's one of those ridiculous VAR decisions, I'll be honest, and it's a shame.
After break, we'll talk about the red card given to Morgan McSweeney.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
A very good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
Sophie and Wilf, good morning from both of us. A busy news morning ahead.
Prince William and wife Catherine directly addressed the Epstein files publicly for the first time after more links with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor are revealed.
It's the start of a critical week that will decide the future of the Prime Minister after his Chief of Staff resigns.
Pro-Hong Kong democracy campaigner and British citizen Jimmy Lai jailed for 20 years for national security offences.
Spads under the spotlight, we're going to be joined by Boris Johnson's former right-hand man Lee Cain about life as a political advisor.
Social media giants are facing claims they have been addictive by design in a trial that could fundamentally change how platforms operate.
Good morning. We've got some breaking news to bring you now because William and Kate have broken their silence on the ongoing revelations in the Jeffrey Epstein files.
The Prince of Wales is about to begin his first visit to Saudi Arabia, and while there, a Kensington Palace spokesperson has just said the following: "I can confirm the Prince and Princess have been deeply concerned by the continuing revelations. Their thoughts remained focused on the victims."
Well, we can bring in our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills, who's in Riyadh for us, so travelling there, of course, with Prince William. Rhiannon, what do you make of the statement?
So, look, you should not underestimate just how big this is. This makes William and Kate the most senior royals so far to comment since the latest release of those Epstein files. And yes, while the words may not be the sentiments that some people want them to make, the fact that they are saying they are deeply concerned about the latest revelations, the fact that those revelations, many of them relate to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, William's uncle, but also the fact that he has also so far not commented. The fact that they realise that they, I think, had to say something. This, of course, has come from a palace spokesperson. But again, in many ways, they are repeating a line that we've already heard from the royal family, which is that we must think of the victims. This also is the first time we've heard anything publicly from William and Kate about Epstein, full stop. So that's why it is a big moment. And the fact that the palace have decided to put this statement out there before William has even landed here in Saudi, I think shows that they really knew they needed to get this out there, that people were going to keep talking about it. They had to get it out there if they were having any fighting chance of being able to focus on what's a really important diplomatic trip for him. But yeah, other senior members of the royal family have tried to avoid this topic over the last week. We know the King was shouted at during a walkabout in Essex last week. He didn't answer. Prince Edward was also asked about it in Dubai. He did give some kind of response, again saying think of the victims, and that does appear to be the royal family's line. We heard it back in October when Andrew was stripped of his titles and stripped of his home. But yeah, whether or not this is going to be enough to stop it distracting from William's trip to Saudi, we're going to have to wait and see over the next few days.
Rhiannon, if we step back from everything over the last few months, I'm just interested whether you sense from whether it's Kensington Palace or Buckingham Palace any regret that they didn't do more sooner. I was really interested last week. This is a sort of small point relative to, of course, the big steps that Buckingham Palace took last year. But all of a sudden, when the news flow got worse, his departure from his house in Windsor was sudden. It was on, we didn't have a departure date, and then all of a sudden it had happened. It kind of suggests there are areas where they could have gone further faster.
Look, I think there were, of course, mutterings that Andrew, they wanted to move him out of Royal Lodge on the Windsor estate as fast as possible. There were suggestions that was going to happen mid-February, but nothing had been confirmed. You may have seen those pictures of him waving at crowds out on horseback on the Windsor estate. I think the fact that the optics of that looked terrible in some ways did sort of force their hand to make that move for him out to Norfolk happen maybe sooner than he wanted to. But yeah, it's a really interesting question. Back in October, we did some polling with the public saying, do you think the King has done the right thing of stripping him of his title, stripping him of his home? And largely the public thought the King had done the right thing. Another question, though, Did people think that they had acted quickly enough? Should they have done stuff sooner? And many people said, yeah, they probably should have acted sooner. But you have to remember, now we have a new monarch. For a long time, as we've seen this Epstein scandal unfold, it was Queen Elizabeth, Andrew's mother, who was monarch. We know that they had a close relationship. We know also it was a different time. There was a sense of hoping that they could avoid issues and people would then move on. But as we've seen with these latest files, this is not going away. And also those questions and the demands for Andrew to speak to the authorities just seem to be getting louder.
Rhiannon, great stuff. Thanks so much. Rhiannon Mills there for us in Riyadh.
A reminder, of course, that Andrew has previously denied any wrongdoing, and also, of course, that being named or pictured is an indication of wrongdoing as well.
To politics now, and Morgan McSweeney, Keir Starmer's right-hand man, has gone. He quit yesterday around lunchtime over his decision to push for Peter Mandelson to get the US ambassador's job in the first place. It's impossible, really, to overstate how important McSweeney has been for Keir Starmer. And in losing him, the question is whether it's Keir Starmer's last card to play.
So, will it be enough to save his premiership? We can try and find out more. We can talk now and bring in our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, who joins us now. I mean, I don't know. I'll be honest. When it came through yesterday lunchtime, I was kind of shocked. It felt that the momentum had been building, that it was inevitable. But, you know, we'd had Pat McFadden out saying it wasn't going to happen. You had Keir Starmer defending him in PMQs. Is this going to be enough for the Prime Minister to survive?
We will wait and see. I mean, in the words of my podcast co-host, Anne McElvoy, this morning, she said the backbenchers wanted red meat, they got the red head. But is it enough? And that is the question. We're entering an unprecedented era for Keir Starmer in the sense that it was Morgan McSweeney, really, who got him the Labour leadership. It was Morgan McSweeney, really, who got that landslide majority back in the summer of 2024. And all the way through the last 6.5 years, Morgan McSweeney has never been that far away from Keir Starmer's side. There was a lot of backwards and forwards over the weekend between Keir Starmer and Morgan McSweeney about whether he should stay. People thought he would stay on Sunday morning, but then the announcement came out at 2 o'clock. Here's a little vignette that tells you just how tense things are. Yesterday afternoon, Number 10 was worried that fans of Morgan's were going to destabilise the government such that there was a ring round of Morgan McSweeney's allies to tell them not to engage in a briefing war, because they'd spotted in the resignation statement by McSweeney there were little bits of kind of self-justification, the business of him not being across being responsible for vetting, for instance, completely unnecessary, sort of protecting his own reputation there. There were claims from allies of McSweeney, for instance, that Jonathan Powell and Chris Wormald, the cabinet secretary, two figures that also back Mandelson but remain in their jobs today. There is a worry that this could spread, but it is the Labour parliamentary party that are judge, jury and executioner of a sitting Labour Prime Minister. Keir Starmer meets them at 6 o'clock this evening. They will assess him and he will assess their support, and that's what really matters.
And just, again, to come back to the point, this Morgan McSweeney news is massive and it's the freshest story. But last week, those MPs did not back the Prime Minister on a vote that was unbelievably important to his personal authority going forward.
Absolutely. And I think the reason that Keir Starmer, in all likelihood, has a limited time in office is because he doesn't command a majority in the House of Commons. And what was the consequence of that vote, Wilf? The consequence is that the government must now, for fear of defying the King, release hundreds and thousands of private emails and WhatsApps relating to Peter Mandelson, the kind of document dump that no reasonable government could automatically assume it would survive. That is just one of the many hurdles, along with the by-elections, the May elections, whatever else is thrown up in the coming weeks. You can sense the enormous tidal wave of stuff still to come, at a point where it feels like Keir Starmer might have played his last card.
Can I ask about the potential next steps? Because, look, we've got so much leadership speculation right, and yet the two frontrunners, Angela Rayner has her tax investigation still hanging over her. Wes Streeting also had would you call it a friendship? Certainly a relationship with Peter Mandelson. It is not clear cut that either of these two people are, in a position to launch a full challenge?
Absolutely not. Andy Burnham, of course, another one. He's not in Parliament.
Yeah, bit of a problem, yeah.
Which is a huge problem. Look, I think that is one of the reasons why there's a circular firing squad, but nobody's pulled the trigger quite yet. Look, I had a cabinet minister who gave me a statement for the podcast this morning talking about going for the leadership. If anyone wants to break cover and go for the leadership, it would break any trust the public has with Labour, and saying that anybody who won wouldn't want to inherit a failing, bickering party. It's far from clear to me that a change makes things better. Take Wes Streeting. I mean, his aides would say there's nothing anywhere that would cause him difficulty in what's to come out with Mandelson. We'll see about that. What is undoubtedly the case, however, is that Wes Streeting is quite a divisive figure. Somebody ran through the different reactions of different bits of the soft left to Wes Streeting. You know, Angela Rayner and their allies, they put their hatred for Wes Streeting an 8 out of 10. The Tribune Group, 7 out of 10. Unaligned soft left independents like Debbie Abrahams, 4 out of 10. And trade unionists on the soft left, a Wes hating rating of 6 out of 10. There are all these different factions who, for various reasons in history, have clashed with this guy. So if you are looking for a leader who is going to put the Labour Party beyond psychodrama, I'm picking up a lot of challenge for that. And that's just one candidate.
What do you sense is going through the Prime Minister's mind? Does he want to fight this to the death?
Nobody knows. I don't know, because nobody knows. We are told of his anger. We are told of how racked he is over this. And I'm always quite suspicious of briefed emotions in politics because, you know, that's all done often for survival reasons. My sense of Keir Starmer is that he is somebody, as the Times columnist Patrick Maguire said on Friday, who subcontracts so much. And he subcontracted the politics on so many occasions to Morgan McSweeney, because he is somebody who sits in a room, as far as I can best analyse, and isn't quite sure where to go. Now, I've got a cabinet minister telling me that's not true, and we'll see the real Keir Starmer as a result of this departure, and he will take the reins politically. We just haven't seen that in 7 years. So I wonder if there's a little bit of Keir Starmer sitting there, scared in meetings, not knowing what to do, wondering who's going to help him now.
And if Morgan McSweeney's not there?
Yeah, and there is no answer to that.
Sam, thanks very much. Really interesting to get your take. Sam Cates speaking to us there on the extraordinary unfolding situation here in Westminster.
Now, the pro-democracy campaigner and British citizen Jimmy Lai has been jailed for 20 years in Hong Kong after being convicted of national security offences.
He denies the charges. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper is joining the voices, calling for him to be released on humanitarian grounds. Earlier in the programme, Jimmy's son, Sebastien, told Wilf about the conditions in which his father is living.
I think if more isn't done to fight for his release, he will very likely die in prison. He's got heart issues, he's got diabetes. The last 5 years, he's been kept in solitary confinement. I mean, these are inhumane conditions for any prisoner. Yeah, I haven't seen my father in the last 5 years. I hear how his health has deteriorated only through other people, how he's lost 10 kilos over the last year alone. And it's incredibly heartbreaking, but it's kind of these bittersweet moments where you know that though his health is failing him, his spirit and his faith is still strong, and he's still holding on.
Sebastien Lai with us earlier. Here's Helen Ann Smith with a summary of all the latest details. It does have flash photography within this report.
Today really marks the conclusion, the culmination, if you like, of an over 5-year journey for Jimmy Lai. 5 years since he was arrested in Hong Kong under national security offences, accused of publishing seditious material and colluding with foreign forces. And the eyes of the world really have been on this trial, on this sentence. How would China deal with Hong Kong's arguably most well-known dissident, most well-known pro-democracy voice? And the answer really is extremely harshly. This sentence that he has been given, 20 years in prison, really is on the far harsher end, I think, of what anybody expected in this case. And his family and his lawyers have long said that a long sentence of this nature would essentially amount to a death sentence, if you like, for Jimmy Lai, a life imprisonment sentence, because he's an elderly man. He's in his late 70s. He's not in good health. He has diabetes. He has heart conditions. His children have said that he's so weak that his fingernails fingernails are falling out. He's been kept in solitary confinement for over 5 years. So I think a really deeply distressing day and moment for his family and his lawyers who've been advocating for his release. Let's take a step back and just remind you who Jimmy Lai is. He is really a Hong Kong rags to riches story. He came to Hong Kong as a child stowaway. He worked as a child labourer before building up a massive clothing empire, before turning his hand to media. And he was the owner and publisher of this brash tabloid-style newspaper in Hong Kong called Apple Daily. And that publication, and Jimmy Lai at the head of it, was unashamedly pro-democracy, unabashed about its criticism, his criticism, if you like, of the Beijing authorities. And he has long been a thorn in China's side. But the focus on him really honed in around the 2019 pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong, protests that he took part in and supported. And it was after that that this big, sweeping national security law came in, and it was under that that he was arrested. Look, in court, the judge described his crimes as grave, as premeditated, and said that they would not be taking Jimmy Lai's medical condition into consideration as part of the sentencing. But I just want to put this sentence in some context, because it's actually double the longest sentence we have seen thus far for a Hong Konger under this national security law. Even China's most famous dissident, Liu Xiaobo, who's the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, sentenced for sedition and other related crimes back in 2009, even he only got 11 years. So 20 years. Look, this is absolutely China making an example of Jimmy Lai, absolutely wanting to show the world that it is not going to back down on these type of cases.
Helen Ann Smith there, and you can watch our full interview with Sebastien Lai online.
Now, Japan's Prime Minister, Tsunai Takaichi, is on course for a landslide victory in yesterday's snap election.
The Conservative Prime Minister is predicted to win a supermajority in the country's lower house. She called the snap election hoping to capitalise on her popularity in the polls, a bet that seems to have paid off.
Yes, in extraordinary style. The election, it should be said, is being watched closely by China. Officials are concerned Japan could take a tougher stance on defence and also on Taiwan too.
President Trump gave his congratulations, saying she's highly respected and very popular leader. Tsunai's bold and wise decision to call for an election paid off big time. The wonderful people of Japan who voted with such enthusiasm will always have my strong support. And she is speaking now live in Tokyo. And just again, a reminder of the scale of this victory. She, with her coalition partners, will end up, it seems, with 75% of the seats, so 352 of 465. Her own party getting 316, so an outright majority in their own right. So the authority to do pretty much what she wants now with that scale of seats.
Yeah, we're kind of listening in to what she's saying. She's saying she's going to dramatically boost national security spending, so big uptake in defence spending. And it's an astonishing story. It's a kind of one-woman victory, really, isn't it? She called the election, she won it, and now she's got a mandate to make some pretty robust policies, right?
Yeah, including on the economy. Now with this supermajority, doesn't need approval of the upper house, and her plan is spend, spend, spend. Despite already Japan's incredibly high debt to GDP ratio, she's going to ignore that. She's going to try and juice the economy. The stock market's loving that record high for the Nikkei 225 this morning. Bond yields are rising too. I think she probably would think not as much as they could be in light of that, but I think that will be the key metric to watch in the next couple of months when we see more of the meat on the bones of her fiscal policy, whether the bond market says, yeah, that's OK or not.
Coming up, we're going to be talking to the Conservatives, interested to get their take on the Morgan McSweeney resignation.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Hello, how's it going? We are covering, of course, the resignation of Keir Starmer's right-hand man, Morgan McSweeney, the guy who spearheaded the election victory that swept Keir Starmer to power, the man who is synonymous, really, with Starmerism. He is out, and I guess the question is, will that be enough to save the Prime Minister after all of that clamour about the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US ambassador? Well, we can talk now to the Conservatives. The chair of the Conservative Party, Kevin Hollinrake, joins us now from North Yorkshire. Good to have you with us. So Morgan McSweeney is out. Was it the right decision?
Well, yes, it was, because he was the advisor responsible for providing the advice to appoint Peter Mandelson. But ultimately, the book doesn't stop there. It stops with the person actually making the decision. Keir Starmer can't just blame everybody around him. He's got to take responsibility for his decisions in his judgment. And I think the difficulties Keir Starmer faces are not just because of Peter Mandelson. He has made judgment after judgment that has been completely flawed. I think there's 15 or 16 U-turns, many of which Kemi Badenoch has pressed to happen on winter fuel allowance, on things like two-child benefit, on welfare reforms, on family farm tax, on digital ID. All those things he's U-turned time and time again. Keir Starmer is just not fit to be Prime Minister of this country. You know what, though? People have had enough of a leadership merry-go-round, haven't they, after what happened with the Conservatives? You know, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, and it leads to bad government. It leads to bad policy making. You know, this is one of the reasons that people were so frustrated with the Conservative Party. Don't we all need to be a little bit more patient when it comes to Prime Ministers? Well, I do get that. You know, we made our mistakes, there's no doubt about it, but we were obviously facing some geopolitical issues beyond our control, leaving the European Union, COVID crisis, cost of living crisis, all those things. But
relevant just to come in, because that's irrelevant to my actual point, which is about chopping and changing prime ministers not being good for policy making.
No, I was going to get to that. But the point is, it leads to bad government and bad policy decisions. You were saying you've got bad government and bad policy decisions now. So, and ultimately, this isn't a choice for me or for Kemi Badenoch or for any of my colleagues. This is a choice for the backbenchers of the Labour Party and the Parliament and the wider Labour Party and his ministers, all of whom have lost confidence in the Prime Minister. Ultimately, it'll be down to them. It's not something we oppose in the best interest of the country. That's what we're trying to do. We wanted this government to succeed. It clearly is not going to succeed because everybody's lost confidence in Keir Starmer.
If everyone's lost confidence in Keir Starmer and everything is as bad as it is, and I recognise that Labour's poll rating has plummeted, you guys should be doing a bit better, shouldn't you? And I know there's been talk in Westminster about, you know, a kind of resurgence of the Conservative Party in the polls, but, you know, more recently it's pretty pancake-like, isn't it? It's Reform who are taking most of the support.
Well, Kemi Badenoch is now the most popular leader amongst the main three leaders. She's more popular than Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage. She's probably not difficult to be more popular than Keir Starmer right now, but more popular than Nigel Farage as well. We're now the most trusted party on the economy, which I think will be increasingly important when we get towards the general election. We're the most trusted party by business. So there's no doubt we have lots of work to do. I don't doubt that, but we are rebuilding. Kemi Badenoch is the right leader. She's a strong leader with backbone. But critically, she's got a good team around her and a plan that stands up to scrutiny, unlike any of the other parties. So I think we'll keep making the case. We are making progress, as you acknowledge, and we'll continue to make progress over coming months and years.
OK, good to talk to you as always. Thank you very much indeed.
We're going to keep covering this key topic to come. We're going to be talking to a man who knows a little bit, I think it's fair to say, I'm not being harsh, about when the wheels start to fall off a premiership in Boris Johnson's in specific case in mind. We'll be talking to his former right-hand man, Lee Cain. That's next. Welcome back. A reminder of the top stories at this hour. William and Kate have broken their silence on the ongoing revelations in the Jeffrey Epstein files after more links with Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor were revealed. A Kensington Palace spokesperson says the Prince and Princess are deeply concerned by the continuing revelations and their thoughts remain focused on the victims.
There are calls for Keir Starmer to take more accountability over the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US ambassador. The PM's right-hand man, Morgan McSweeney, has resigned for supporting the decision.
Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper is pushing for Jimmy Lai to be released from prison in Hong Kong on humanitarian grounds after he was sentenced to 20 years in prison overnight. The pro-democracy campaigner and British citizen was found guilty of conspiracy to collude with foreign forces and of publishing seditious material, charges which he denied.
Well, look, we've been discussing it all morning. Keir Starmer has lost his right-hand man. Scrutiny continues to mount over the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US ambassador. Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, quit over his role in pushing for Peter Mandelson to be ambassador yesterday afternoon. Let's talk more about it. We're delighted to say we're joined by the former Director of Communications in Downing Street for Boris Johnson, Lee Cain. Lee, good morning to you.
Good morning.
A little bit of déjà vu?
A little. I think number 10's it's a very lonely
and sort of oppressive place when you get this sort of story. That kind of, you know, the eye of Sauron sort of suddenly focuses on the whole place, and the walls do feel very enclosed and close in. So I can very much appreciate probably what they're feeling inside number 10 today.
As a former advisor yourself, do you have sympathy with Morgan McSweeney? Because there's often people who say, look, you know, it's very easy to blame the advisor, to blame the chief of staff, to blame the head of comms, when actually the problem comes from the PM themselves.
So I do have an element of sympathy. You do know what the job is when you go in, but I do have a huge amount of sympathy for him. He's done an incredible job bringing Starmer and Labour back to an electable position, but we can also see at the moment that, you know, I think it's a sensible position he's in to resign. Fundamentally, it is, you know, advisors advise, ministers decide, and I think it doesn't matter what advisors you have around you. If the PM themselves don't have the right judgment, you're always going to get into these situations.
Was there a moment looking back when you knew the writing was on the wall for your former boss? What was the tipping point, and how do you assess the current situation?
Well, I think for me, under Boris, number 10's always very much like a court. You have this extreme sort of court politics. There's always different factions inside, all sort of vying for their own sort of power, their own sort of direction of where things were going. During my time, you could sort of feel that he wanted to take things in a certain trajectory, which I and others felt would be the wrong course and ultimately wouldn't deliver what we promised in 2019. You sort of can feel now, it's the same sort of thing, you know, his sort of core team is now pretty much all gone around the PM. There's another iteration of let's have more grown-ups, let's have new people in and around it. The crucial problem is, does the principal have the abilities and the political judgment to deliver, to navigate things through? If they do, you won't have a problem, but if you don't, and it looks very much like they don't, then it sort of becomes inevitable. In
the way that he can't win votes in the House of Commons, or he's having to, I guess, change amendments and all that kind of thing because he can't command the support of his MPs?
Well, I think it's broader than that. If you look at public sentiment, I've spent a lot of time in focus groups over the last couple of months. The mood against Keir Starmer and the perceptions of him generally are incredibly poor. I mean, worse than I've seen of any Prime Minister in sort of a decade doing these sorts of things.
But worse than Liz Truss?
Slightly different. I think Liz was a sort of, you know, firework that burned brightly and then faded away. But we're talking about people are genuinely incredibly angry. You'd maybe expect it to be a bit more sort of a shrug of the shoulders, not doing a great job. But they're quite angry with him, and that sort of public perception that he isn't delivering change, he isn't delivering what was promised. The Labour MPs will be feeling that on the doorstep. They'll be feeling this anger. And I think it's always public opinion that drives political opinion. And the public lost faith with Keir Starmer a long time ago.
I guess one of the things that Keir Starmer's supporters will be saying is, you know, look what happened to the Tories when they changed leader. It's not like you had a leader come in who immediately claimed the backing and authority that was necessary to succeed. Will that be a risk if Labour MPs decide to try and remove Keir Starmer?
It's certainly a risk. I think, you know, if I was a Labour MP, the one thing that I would be looking at is if we go on our current trajectory, we're probably going to be in a world where Nigel Farage will be the next Prime Minister. I imagine that in itself is, you know, very much at the focus of people's minds. Can another Labour minister or another Labour member take the party in a different direction, reclaim the narrative, deliver the change that people wanted? Who knows? That's, you know, is there anybody there who can do it? There are some very capable people, I think, within the Labour Party, but delivering is another issue.
I was interested to read your analysis of the Conservative Party after going to a lot of these focus groups, and you're scathing, right? Because there has been a bit of a sense in Westminster that maybe there's a bit of recovery going on, but you say that's not happening.
The so-called sort of Kemi bounce, I think, is a sort of Westminster creation, a bit of a delusion. I think Kemi's performing, you know, perfectly adequately in the sense of she's doing well at PMQs and, you know, applying a bit of pressure. But outside in the country, people aren't listening to the Conservative Party. They're not giving them any sort of attention. So, you know, we can see in the polls, I think 16% the Tories are currently polling, which I think, you know, probably is lower than I think during the Liz Truss time. So this idea that there's a revival, people are just not paying attention, and they probably see reform as much more of a challenger to the government, which, you know...
So reform are the winners here then, basically, if Starmer is out.
Currently, but I think people also have question marks on Nigel Farage and Foreman. There's a bit of sort of plague on all their houses at the moment, and they're unsure of which direction to move into.
In 2019, Boris Johnson's victory, your victory, was, I guess, kind of particularly remarkable in uniting the Red Wall plus the well-heeled south of England. A kind of classic Reform voter and a classic Tory voter all became one. I think there was a lot of factors behind that. One was the individual in Boris Johnson, but so was the fact that Nigel Farage stood down candidates, and there was still that topic of Brexit, get Brexit done, that could unite those people. Do you think that electoral map will ever be repeated by one individual? Will either the Tories regain the Reform support or vice versa in the years ahead, or is it going to remain divided?
I think there is a huge opportunity for any political party that looks to actually listen to where the country is, the things that they want fixed, and actually gets on with delivering them. Again, if we look at what's happening with the current government, they've not tackled any of the sort of core issues which they came into government and said they were going to. So while people keep ignoring the will of the public, we're going to continue in this cycle of change not happening, polls sort of continually going down, governments following the sort of various narratives that are in the media and not having their own story to tell and delivering for the country.
We're out of time, but I'm just going to sneak in like a kind of very, very quick answer, one-word answer from you. Who should the Conservatives be and Reform be most scared of out of the contenders to replace Keir Starmer? Who do you think would be the best one?
Probably either. I would probably say either someone like Wes Streeting or the dark horse, someone like Al Cairns.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Good to have you on.
Thanks very much for having me.
Lee Kane speaking to us there.
Now, the Seattle Seahawks were crowned Super Bowl champions last night. Sophie will not stop talking about it. But it's the halftime show that we're keen to talk about. Puerto Rican artist Bad Bunny was the headline act, a choice seen by many as a political choice due to the fact he sings almost exclusively in Spanish.
Now, his performance had a couple of special appearances as well, as it always happens at the Super Bowl. Lady Gaga, Ricky Martin, and yeah, it was a real celebration, I think, of Puerto Rican culture.
He ended the show holding up a football with the words "Together We Are America" on it, and was joined by flag bearers waving flags from all countries of the Americas. Joining us to talk all about this from Washington, D.C. is entertainment reporter Ronsei Isangbedo. Thanks so much for joining us. I guess, sum up for us how political this performance was or wasn't. There was such a sort of build-up to it.
Thanks for having me. It was very political, but not in the very overt way. The NFL has very strict rules about making political statements. But I think even the mere fact that it was performed mostly in Spanish, I think is a statement, especially among certain sects of the American population that are very Spanish speaking, and look at it as an affront to the American way of life. And so that alone was significant. But I think the performance has so many symbols in it. I think the farm workers was kind of a nod to the immigrant experience. A lot of the agriculture in America really is driven by the immigrants who work in the fields. I think bodegas and all the different things that signal, the Latin American experience in America, I think was making a statement in this time where it seems like that community is being attacked by the Trump administration.
Can I just check this? Because I'm, as regular listeners to the show will know, I don't know a great deal about Bad Bunny, but are his songs not Spanish always?
They're mostly Spanish. He's a Spanish-speaking artist, and I think the choice to have him perform, I think, was a statement by the NFL, possibly by Rock Nation, which now executive produces a halftime show. And so I think that was the significance there. I think also it comes a week after. I mean, not that they knew that this was going to happen, but he won the Album of the Year award at the Grammys last week, which is the first time a Spanish language album has taken that prize. And so I think that alone, speaks to what's happening right now, and that makes it inherently political.
Yeah, and while Donald Trump's not happy about it either, he's posted on True Social saying the show was absolutely terrible, the worst ever, and nobody understood a word this guy is saying. So, yeah, I think we can gather from that he wasn't a fan of Big Bunny. Bad Bunny. How How do you think it's gone down in the rest of America?
I think it's being praised widely on the internet. People enjoy it. I think he had like a roster of who's who of Latin American stars. Cardi B, Jessica Alba, Pedro Pascal were all kind of performing as background dancers in the performance. He also had a spot by Ricky Martin. So I think it was really popular. It was really well liked. It was great visuals. I mean, I enjoyed it. So loved it.
We're going to have to end because Wilf has absolutely lost it because I just said Big Bunny, not Bad Bunny.
I heard that.
Which is fair. It's probably the least cool thing I've ever done in my life. But hey, anyway, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Fine, thank you.
I'm going to take this next link as well, I think, while you go and get a glass of water and recover. We're talking social media next because the trial's getting underway in Los Angeles, which could change how we use social media. Are you ready?
For the first time, social media companies will face a jury with Meta and YouTube accused of creating addictive and harmful products. Here's our science and technology reporter, Mickey Carroll.
Social media is on trial, and if it loses, it could change the way we live online. So in LA, there's this mega trial underway, accusing social media platforms of being addictive by design, a bit like cigarettes or tobacco. For years, people have tried to sue companies like Meta, TikTok, Snap, YouTube, saying that social media has damaged them. But those cases have been largely unsuccessful. So now, lawyers are trying a different angle of attack. So what makes this trial different? The first difference is the jury. These companies have never faced trial by jury. The second difference is the scale. So the testimonies of more than 1,500 people have been considered as part of these trials, and we're expecting around 22 bellwether trials, test trials, to help lawyers assess future cases. Now, the third difference, potentially the most important difference, is the actual allegation. They're not talking here about the content on social media being harmful. They're saying that the product itself, i.e. the social media platform, is defective and harmful by design. The first of these trials focuses on allegations by a then 19-year-old Californian. She says that Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube and Instagram caused her to have body image issues, anxiety and depression. Now, Snapchat and TikTok have already settled out of court, but Meta and YouTube are still on trial. They say there's no clear scientific link between tech use and addiction, and that there'll need to be really strong evidence that they've significantly harmed young people. Now, if the social media companies lose, they'll have to pay compensation, but they'll also have to change the way they operate. And it'll pave the way for the scores of other social media trials that are coming their way.
Mickey Carroll there for us. We're going to have a look at the weather now.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
There'll be further potentially disruptive rain this week, and it will turn colder with wintry hazards possible by Friday. It'll be mild and rather murky again this morning with patchy rain or drizzle for many, but the northwest and southeast will be mainly dry. Northeastern Scotland and the far west can expect more general rain. Most places will see little change into the afternoon, remaining quite grey and damp, but northeastern Scotland will turn dry. Northwestern Scotland will stay mostly fine, while central and southeastern England will brighten. It'll be mild but breezy for many. Wales and central southern England will turn wet later, while the far southwest will slowly dry up. That's your weather.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Coming up, the Japanese Prime Minister's gamble to call a snap election pays off in pretty big style, I have to say. We'll be discussing that after the break.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?
Welcome back. Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi is on course for a landslide victory in yesterday's snap election. Her party had already secured a majority. Some 90 minutes after polls closed, the question is now how big that majority will be. Well, political reporter at the Japan Times, Gabrielle Ninivaggi, joins us now from Tokyo. Thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you. Just gauge for us the scale of her victory.
Sure, of course. Thanks for having me here. So the LDP won the largest number of seats in post-war history. So we can tell that Takaichi's victory was a sweeping one. It was a total one. So the party won 316 seats with its coalition partner 352, which is 2/3 of the lower house seats. So I think we can say that Takaichi's victory was full, and it was, she really received a strong mandate from the voters, I think.
And that 2/3 majority is crucial for being able to overrule the upper house going forward.
Correct, exactly. So we start from a position where the LDP didn't have a majority in the lower house. So Takaichi was able to regain this. And according to Japanese constitution, the bills that are rejected in the upper house can go back to the lower house and they can get passed if the ruling coalition has a majority of 2/3. So I think this is quite a big win for Takaichi. We'll see now there are challenges in governing the party. The party now has over 400 lawmakers, but definitely she's off to a great start, I think, this year.
President Trump and other members of his administration have been quick to praise her victory. Did she, on the flip side, use President Trump and being aligned with him on the campaign trail, or is it too much of a leap to make that extension?
I would say, yeah, she talked about diplomacy a bit during the campaign, but she really focused on bread and butter issues such as really tackling rising prices and her plans just to increase defense spending and boost Japan's defense capabilities and intelligence capabilities. She did talk about how she met Trump and how she met other prime ministers in her 3-month tenure, but that wasn't, I wouldn't call it the focus of her campaign overall.
Talk to me about what was central, which is her economic plan. Clearly, Japan has a very high debt to GDP, 225%, and yet she plans to spend her way out of it?
I'm not sure we could go that far, to be honest, but she definitely has big plans, and she definitely has a big agenda on the economic front, I'd say. She's long been an advocate for more spending. She said early on in her office, she set out to she said that she was going to spend a lot of money on 17 areas, including AI, semiconductors, and bio, for instance. But we can say that the voters really trusted her with this kind of policy. Though I would say that they didn't really look at the policies as much this time. It was really about her. She made herself the center, really, of the campaign. She asked voters to vote for her or for someone else, and the voters voted for her. So I think she has a full mandate now. Although the reaction from markets has been more complicated than the public's verdict, I would say.
And how kind of overt have her views towards China been? Is this something that could create significant tension in the region?
So relations have been great for a bit now since her November 7th comments on Taiwan. Again, I would say that the public really trusted her on China. There's definitely a sense of increasing unease and distrust towards China's expanding. presence in the East China Sea and Japan's vicinity, I think. And so the voters saw that she could act a bit strong on this, and they trusted her with this. I'm sure that China was watching this election quite closely, but I can only say that Takaichi's got a full mandate from the public, and I think she'll just keep on doing what she's been doing, which is taking a stronger line on China, while at the same time obviously making an effort to keep a channel open for dialogue.
Gabriel, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, of course, we've been talking an awful lot about leadership manoeuvres on the programme today, and there was a video that was posted to TikTok yesterday, just hours before the Morgan McSweeney resignation, that has raised a few eyebrows, it's fair to say. So this is Angela Rayner asking the usual at her hairdressers. So she's got a little blow dry, a little bit of colour put in there as well, to get her TV ready.
And everyone loves this.
Yeah, they do. Everyone does love it. Everyone does love it.
And this, to be fair, was before Morgan McSweeney resigned.
Yeah, a couple of hours before, she requested the usual from a hairdresser, and to sort of, I think, look, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, isn't it? I think she knows what she's doing. She knows it's going to make the Daily Mail. She knows it's going to set the hairs running. See what I did there?
You're very clever. Very clever. You the hairs, bunnies earlier. The other point, though, I will just say, is I found it quite amusing over the weekend, and she's one of them, David Lamb was the others, who used their allies to leak, I was always against the Mandelson appointment, but no one was enough against it initially to, break ranks back when it happened.
Yeah.
And they all, I think, one after another, came out and praised the trade deal and this and that. Great work by the ambassador. So there's a bit of manoeuvres.
Yeah, they're 100%. And, of course, Angela Rayner was the one who led the charge in the Commons to force Keir Starmer to publish more information about that appointment process as well. So, yeah, keep an eye on her and where she's getting her haircuts.
Another story we wanted to bring you quickly as well. Big Premier League match yesterday. Man City-Liverpool. This was right at the death where Man City, 7 minutes into stoppage time, were already going to win 2-1. The goal, well, it did go in, rolled in, and then VAR came in, reviewed it, instead disallowed the goal and gave Lai, the Liverpool player there, a red card. Once again, with everyone saying with VAR, just let it stand.
Yeah.
It didn't change the result. As an Arsenal fan, it means, Lai has a 3-game ban and Man City have one less goal on the goal difference, so I don't particularly mind. But it was silly.
I watched this last night as a neutral, and it was the most chaotic, exhilarating last few moments. There was an incredible save by the Man City keeper. There was obviously that challenge. Really, both of them were kind of in it. And then you had the uproar at the end. And for me, it just sums up the case against VAR, because as a fan, as a live fan, whether you're in the stadium, whether you're watching at home, it just takes the chaos out of football, and it's no one wanted that. Liverpool didn't want it, Man City didn't want it. What's going on?
Lai goes from hero to villain as well. Unbelievable goal. He put Liverpool 1-0 up, obviously ending with a red card. But kudos, annoyingly, to Manchester City, because away at Anfield, 1-0 down. They still get the 3 points, close the gap to 6 points at the top of the table. But another great Premier League weekend.
Yeah.
All the focus will be back, though, here in Downing Street after Morgan McSweeney, of course, resigned yesterday, and ongoing coverage of that throughout the day.
We'll have Keir Starmer, of course, addressing some of his own MPs later. That is going to be a crunch meeting. It surely will. But, of course, so far we've had, on this programme at least, Cabinet Ministers rowing in behind Keir Starmer.
There'll be more coverage as well on what Prince William and Kate have said in Riyadh, or as they approach Riyadh for their visit there. And that's all to come on Sky News Today with Gareth. Don't go anywhere.